All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Frankie. I normally don't like doing that, but all right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Frankie. I'd like to call the Will County Board Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 9:10. If we can all stand for the pledge. And Mr. O'Hara, would you like to lead us? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir. Can we have a roll call, please?
Richmond, Williams, Dean Schlattman, Ogalla, Pretzel, Butler, Newquist, Balich, Oxley, Brooks, Winfrey, Bullock, Logan, Freeman, Revis, Mitchell, Ortiz, Berkowitz, Hickey, Costa, Trenier, and Van Dyne.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes 26-5021, the Committee of the Whole, way back in December 9th, 2025. Motion by Trenier, seconded by Hickey. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Probably can't remember that far back. Can I have a roll, please?
Richmond, Williams, Dean Schlattman, Ogalla, Pretzel, Butler, Newquist, Ballot, Oxley, Brooks, Winfrey, Bullock, Logan, Freeman, Revis, Mitchell, Ortiz, Berkowitz, Hickey, Costa, Trenier, Van Dyne.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll open it up to public comment, and I do know that we do have a variety of experts here this morning that would like to present to the county board. So if you're not a presenter and you have something to add to the conversation from the public, here's your opportunity. Does anyone want to speak to the board members? Seeing none. Okay, thank you. Old business 26-497902. This is merely a discussion establishing a Will County Land Bank. We will not be voting on this today, but merely a discussion. So I think I would like to open it up to Mr. O'Hara from the Governmental League. If you'd like to come up and give your thoughts. And we do have Kayla from the CED as well that will be chiming in as well.
Yes.
Do you want to, would you like to start?
Yeah, I would like to start. So,
Full name, please.
of course, good morning. My name is Kayla Sorensen. For those of you that don't know me, I am the Vice President of External Affairs for the Will County Center for Economic Development. And I am here today on behalf of Doug Pryor, our President and CEO, who unfortunately could not be here today because he is out on medical leave. And so just before we begin, and I pass it off to Hugh to just lead this discussion today, I just want to quickly recognize Doug's leadership on this while he is out of the office right now, and his his tremendous leadership and the amount of work he has put into this initiative to bring it before all of you today and get it to this point. Many of you have heard from him over several meetings over the past several months. You know, he has answered, you know, been here many times to advocate for this initiative and answer so many questions and work collaboratively with our many municipalities and also organizations such as the Will County Governmental League, along with other stakeholders to help shape this proposal and strengthen it, but also to help mirror it to other communities that have similar proposals as this one. So while Doug is unable to be here physically today, I am proud to be here on behalf and advocate for the Will County Center for Economic Development. You know, the stance of the CED is unchanged and remains the same. We fully support that and have the confidence in this initiative going forward. You know, we believe a land bank authority is an important tool for Will County and our municipalities, and it's proven best practices across the state. We've seen this, you know, implemented across Illinois. And I think you all are familiar with what the Will County Center for Economic Development does, but we were established over 45 years ago. And, you know, our mission is to support not only economic development, but strengthening our communities and providing resources for municipalities to use tools. And so, and we believe that economic development requires not only collaboration with organizations and with people like yourselves, but it includes innovation and coming up with new tools that can support our communities in a lot of different ways. And so the proposed land bank is just one of those tools. You've heard that several times. This is a tool for our communities to use. And it's another option to address redevelopment challenges and support local priorities. And so this has been something we've been talking about for several years. So I'm proud to see that it's gotten to this point as well. And so I'm grateful to have Hugh here with me today. Hugh has worked alongside Doug over these many months to bring this proposal to you all. And while I have gotten up to speed very quickly in the last week or so, I will allow Hugh to lead the conversation in today's presentation, but I will be here on behalf of the CED to answer any questions. But I just want to say thank you to all of you for your time, many meetings now, and the opportunity to be here today, and hope that you all will be supportive of this initiative. So thank you so much. So I will turn it over to Hugh now, and we'll be here. Yeah.
Thanks, Kayla. That was a much nicer way than saying, we're really sorry you're getting the B team today. So if any of you know me, you know I don't like PowerPoints or charts and graphs, and this is a Doug Pryor presentation, so I think we all know where this goes. So for anyone that hasn't seen this presentation, we're going to go through it real quick. What is a land bank? It's an entity that's focused on returning distressed properties to productive use. Think vacant houses, think vacant commercial spaces. Basically functions as an enabler to redevelopment. It is not a redeveloper. It's not looking to be a longtime property holder. The whole point of this is to put vacant and abandoned properties back into productive use. This isn't about taking people's homes. This isn't about trying to do anything with an unwilling seller. This is entirely about properties that have been vacant, abandoned, have property owners that are willing to sell. A land bank doesn't have things like eminent domain. We're not trying to go in and forcefully do anything. This is all about properties that we're able to purchase that simply don't have enough value in them to get a developer interested in fixing them up. We're there to be that gap between. Tim, if you want to go to the next slide. You know, why vacant and abandoned properties are harmful. We all know that it can cause public health issues. It can cause, you know, issues with property values in the neighborhood, your overall fiscal stability because you don't have that tax base there. There's a lot, obviously, that goes into having a stable tax base, but this can be a piece of it. I don't think any of us like the idea of having abandoned properties in our neighborhood. Next slide. What a land bank does is acquire them, clears up tax and title issues, tries to stabilize and get the sites ready for resale. You can see the Central Illinois Land Bank, a lot of what they do is tear downs. If you look at their website, which I know some of you have, it has a lot of information about tear downs in their communities. This is something that there are areas where tear downs make sense in Will County. where maybe fixing up the house just isn't worth it and getting it torn down at this point is where the value is. So that is something that a land bank can do. Preferably, we'd like to see it be property that can be rehabbed and put back out there, because anything that can be rehabbed can be done for a lot less money than a full rebuild. Next slide. Why the current tools aren't enough. A large part of it is that, Illinois government is complicated and there's so many levels to it that sometimes getting everyone coordinated can be a challenge, says the guy who runs the governmental league. Between county, townships, municipalities, there can be some challenges, but this allows municipalities to have another tool when it comes to these types of ownerships. Strategically, we can put properties together. One of the folks who's with us here today was talking about a property yesterday where the village has something surrounded in one of our communities and, is looking to just hold it. And now you got this owner sort of in the middle with, left a bit in limbo. Putting those sites together is difficult, but, you can see where a land bank may be able to step in and help assemble those sites. The benefits to the county is it's wholly a Will County focused entity. Right now, Joliet, for instance, has a potential seat on the South Cook Land Bank. Joliet and South Cook County, long way apart, don't have common interests per se. It doesn't make sense for them to work with that land bank. That one, there's also some criticisms of it, of how long they hold property. By having it here, by having it made up of people in Will County, by having it made up of the communities of Will County, those decision makers, it's very close to the residents. It's very close to the projects. It's the people who know what's going on. So having our own makes a lot of sense. You'll hear that sort of around a number of Will County related issues. And I think the coming years is, it's time for Will County to have its own of things as opposed to glom on to another county or another multiple counties groups. Next slide. So this is just a little bit on the tax foreclosure properties. That's the one that's gotten a lot of attention. In practice, there are not that many tax foreclosed properties that are left out there in the county. I believe Mr. Brophy said at the last meeting we're somewhere around 116 properties. A lot of those are little strips or triangles left over by development. Those kinds of properties are ones you would see probably disposed of, if they're going to be disposed at all, via a side lot disposal program, which is what some communities have. Some land banks do it as well, where the land bank steps in and works with the adjacent homeowner to take that property. Right now, a lot of that work has to be done by the adjacent property owner. And so this would allow the land bank to step in and help with costs and assist in getting those parcels disposed. As I said, most of this will be focused on those vacant or abandoned properties that actually, are what you would consider sort of your normal property, as opposed to those random strips that are left after the tax sales. How do we structure it? By public act. They're all set up as intergovernmental partnerships. That means it becomes its own authority once this is set up. It's responsible to its board of directors, who are then responsible to their communities. So again, trying to be a broad representation of stakeholders, trying to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table. The next slide has just a list of some of the land banks that are around Illinois. If you look around the country, you can see they started on the East Coast and have migrated west at a pretty good clip. You can kind of follow the age of homes as you see the expansion of land banks, because they are in areas where you do have older properties that have been let go to sort of a point of uninhabitability. So how do land banks acquire property? The easiest way is donations and gifts, but as you can imagine, those are not the most common ways that we get there. Government transfers, municipalities own property, the county owns property that you may want to transfer to the land bank, direct purchase, and then the tax foreclosure delinquency process. Again, I think direct purchase government transfers, those are likely to be the sort of main ways that this land bank goes about getting property. The tax foreclosure delinquency process, because of what's left at the end of that, after you have a chance for private developers to get in there, there's not sort of those normal full lots that are left. We're talking about those small little things. So I don't think that'll end up being a huge part of this. Next slide. So the request of the county is that it requires the county to enable a land bank. So you would need to start it. It would then go out. We would start looking for other members to commit, being in the municipal space, as well as those other members that are listed in the ordinance who would be on there. Those would be professionals in banking, real estate, finance, et cetera. The folks that actually do the work in this space. And we have several of them with us here today to help answer questions. We have Bill Caton with us, who does, I think all of you know, a lot of commercial development around the county. We also have with us Mayor Joe Rudez from University Park, who's done a lot of work with something similar to land banking in UP. We have Jen Vivano from the Realtors, and then from municipalities, we've got Jane Bernhard, and I know Tom Durkin was here back there as well. I picked on Tom because Tom's a planner by trade and knows a little about land banks. The idea, though, is that in working together, you won't need a county department. We're not looking for extra dollars beyond the funds that the CED has in ARPA funds. The idea as far as funding is that this thing will become self-sustaining in the future. The operating principles is the next slide. Again, focus on strategic pickup of problem properties. This is going to require intense working with our municipal partners to make sure that the properties are the ones that they would like us to target. Obviously, some delinquent, or not, like I said, not the delinquents, but the abandoned vacant properties, we want to go after those ones right away where we think we can have success. We do not want to become a land bank that holds property. The whole point of this is to get these properties back on the tax rolls, back into productive use, whether that's commercial or residential. We do not want to be in a situation where a land bank is holding property for more than 2 to 5 years. We want to be able to turn these properties around as fast as possible. There may be one-offs here and there where a strategic hold is what a community is looking for, and we can do that. But overall, the idea is to get these properties back out into the market. And then once they're sold back off, those dollars will replenish the fund to allow us to go back out and purchase more properties. It sort of becomes a revolving loan fund for ourselves. The board structure, I know was one of the slides. Maybe we missed that one, Tim. Or I have these papers in the wrong order. Either way. I'll just go over the board structure then, since I have that slide and it's not there. As of right now, and what's in your packet is you have the county board chair, their designee, which is in this case the speaker, not sure why it says board chair, county treasurer, county executive, or their designees, the Will County Governmental League. And then every municipality that wants to participate gets a board member. And then 5 experts, economic development, real estate, finance, banking, someone from the planning engineering world, someone from workforce, organized labor, community development, someone in that space. In some discussions we've had recently, we might recommend that you do 2 real estate folks on there, 1 in the commercial space and 1 in the residential space, because those are very different markets. And so having someone that specializes in residential and then having someone that specializes in commercial, we think makes a lot of sense. As you can see then, should you choose to do this, the next steps, we pass this and then begin work with the CED to get this up and going. We would house this at the CED to at least start, and then as we grow, it can be spun off into its own entity. I want to be very clear about one thing. We want to crawl before we get to walking with this land bank. There has been, I think, a lot of thought that this is something that's going to just jump out there and start buying up loads of property across the county. We're talking it's number one, we only have $1 million. And I realize saying only $1 million sounds silly, but it doesn't go that far when it comes to buying properties. We're talking about a couple properties to begin with, and then preferably, you know, as we grow, as we can show to state and federal policymakers that grant dollars are worthy to come our way, we'll be able to do more. But we see this starting slow. We don't see this being, you know, anything we're trying to rush or anything that we're trying to, you know, run before we can walk. So we're really trying to be deliberate. We're trying to be slow about this intentionally so that we don't find ourselves in any position that we don't want to be into, left with a bunch of properties that we can't get rid of. And then all of a sudden, our $1 million is tied up very quickly in properties that we can't move. And now we're sort of stuck. So we don't want to find ourselves in that situation. So we want to go slow. And with that, I will open it up to any questions, comments, et cetera. And like I said, Mr. Speaker, we do have some experts with us. I don't know if you want them to just be available for questions. I told them we wouldn't have them just have to make statements because I know your meetings can run a little long. I figured you didn't need 5, 6 extra statements, but they are here to answer questions.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the way to approach this. If you have a question, you or Kayla, that maybe you feel better fit to have the real estate people come up, that would be fine. So by a show of lights, I'm probably going to need a book here to write everyone's name down. I will go with Member Trenier, and then Richmond, and then Newquist. Member Trenier, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hugh, I have maybe a question or a statement. I'm not quite sure how to put it, but you were talking about the random strips of land that are left over. And I've seen that book, and you're right. It's about 100 and some properties, give or take. And I did have a talk with the treasurer, Mr. Brophy, and he explained to me why the adjoining homeowners wouldn't want that property. I'm wondering, and I'll explain to everybody else so they know what he said. It was that if you give them that extra property, they now have to pay property tax on that extra piece of land, and they're using it for free right now, and they don't want to pay the property tax. I don't know if this is a question for you or maybe something for some other department here at the county, but I'm thinking we could do a deal with these people where we give them the land and we vacate the property line, make it all one PIN number. And they don't like new PIN numbers. I found that out as well. Find a way to keep the same PIN number. I don't know if we got to talk to Congress about that, but get them to be able to keep their same PIN number, give them that property, and make it so that they don't have to pay the increase in the property tax until the property is sold. After their death, after they move on, whatever the circumstance would be. That way it gets it off our books, gets it onto a PIN number, and doesn't cause any harm to the existing owner that's willing to take it on. So that's one question, I guess, to find out if that's even a possibility. And maybe some of these experts know that. Second question, I'm aware of a property right in Bolingbrook where a developer built 2 rows of condominiums, townhomes. I think they were the 3-story type that you see a lot of in Naperville. And then he built the foundation for a 3rd one and never, ever built the building. And across the street, I believe he also owns the court. And there are 2 houses in that court, but it's platted for 5. So there's 3 other possibilities. This has been sitting like this for probably 20 years. Would this be the kind of project that you would be looking to take on? Because I don't think it's abandoned. I think he's paying whatever taxes.
Mhm.
But I'd like to see this get developed. It's an eyesore for one thing, but I'd also like to see it get developed.
Yeah, so to your second, I'll start with the second one.
Sure.
Yes, but you'd obviously have to see the reason that maybe they're not being developed is you have a property owner that just has an insane price in their head for what it's worth. And that's why no one else wants to come in and pick those up. So, you know, not knowing all the details,
Yeah.
yes, but if
Okay.
they were available for an amount where it made sense, and where the math played out, that if you did then get a developer in there and the land bank was able to work with them to get those developed, absolutely. If the math doesn't work out,
Right, then you
obviously you wouldn't want to, yeah.
Right.
Because you'd want to,
You want to make money, you want to
Correct.
put money into the system so you can do more projects.
yes, and
Mhm.
in the situations where maybe the land bank's willing to take a loss or at least a little bit of a loss on a property, you'd really want to make sure that you are getting a lot back for it, that it was, going to really help out the community in some way. So
Ah,
assuming you sort of measure all those things out, yes,
okay,
but with all those caveats
sure.
attached. The question about the holding off on the property taxes, the county could obviously put a program in to hold back your property taxes. The problem becomes that you've
With all
got
the other taxing
all the other
bodies.
taxing bodies.
Yeah, I didn't even get.
So
figure
you'd
that,
have to
but you're
go get
right.
everyone to agree to waive their property taxes on that. Is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? No. Maybe if we worked it correctly, but
But just for now, those properties are never going to bring us any
yeah,
revenue.
to be fair, I don't, as I said, I think the tax delinquent portion has been heavily focused on in discussion, but in reality is not,
Not a big part of what
is
you're
not
going
going
to
to be
do.
a big part of what the land bank would be after.
I'm supportive of the concept. I know that several of my colleagues have some concerns. They have some ideas that they'd want to add to the agreement, the
Yeah.
IGA. But I am supportive, and as long as we can get those other issues taken care of, then I'm going to be a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Leader Richmond, good morning.
Thank you, Jackie. That was a great idea. That was something that I had written down before and had spoken with a couple folks, is having the local jurisdiction get involved, the assessor, whoever the right person is, because I always believe in the term, nothing's impossible. So now what we do is we go and we let the closest jurisdiction handle the dissolution of this pieces or slivers of property, because I'm sure there's some labor costs involved, things like that, can be quickly and easily eliminated, take headaches off of staff's desk and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to comment on that. But so Hugh and Kayla, thank you for coming out today. I appreciate it. And it's sorry to hear about Doug's health issues, but hopefully, Kayla, you can go through some of these questions and that. I know, Hugh, Doug is the spearhead on this, right?
Correct.
Because I heard Jennifer say she wasn't involved. Doug was the spearhead. You were the
We're
kind of-
we're cheerleaders.
we're
for it.
cheerleaders. Okay. All right. So
Today, an enthusiastic one.
an enthusiastic one. Great. Great. So under Doug's leadership, then I'd say probably 99% of this was his baby, I'll call it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay, all right. So I guess the question comes down is how much money did the CED receive from ARPA dollars in total back in, I believe it was 2022?
I see the executive behind you raising her hand.
Board voted for 5 million to get to them.
5 million. Okay.
County board voted for.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't here at the time. So can you help us understand how that other 4 million was used?
I know that there are some funds that are going to a tourism economic development marketing proposal, and beyond that, I honestly don't know. Yep.
Okay.
No.
Nope.
I'll take care of it. There we go.
Great. So yes, in addition to what hopefully will be a land bank authority, the marketing RFP that is currently in the works. We also have a business retention and expansion manager that that is on staff that supports small businesses throughout the county. Excuse me. We also work with Workforce Services. So I believe it's the Upskill program. Does that sound familiar? I think that's the name of it. We have a software system called SizeUp that we utilize as well. It's a system that helps small businesses with some data and, to help support them with different business expansion initiatives. And then beyond that, our housing study, which just was completed last month, was something that we used ARPA funding for as well. I don't have the full list of all of the initiatives in front of me, but those were the extensive projects that we've utilized the ARPA funding for so far.
So $1 million is the only amount that that you haven't allocated or spent.
That is what we are allocating for the Land Bank Authority.
So there's no other dollars.
Currently, I will have to go back and take a look. There are some dollars left over, but as of now, the proposal is to allocate $1 million to the Land Bank Authority.
Right. So why are we in the 11th hour and all of a sudden we still have $1 million that are unallocated? I guess that's like you said, it's a lot of money,
It is. It's not nothing.
it's not nothing. And, I guess if all of a sudden you have $1 million left in your budget in the 11th hour, it's kind of shocking and surprising.
Not the CED, so I understand the comment.
I guess I have to direct my questions to you, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to tell you there. Not responsible for the.
I know. What I
the-
kind of feel like right now is that I've got the CEO of Pepsi standing in front of me and I'm asking questions about Coca-Cola.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay. So I know you're going to do your best.
Yep.
And Jim, just so you know, if there's questions that go unanswered, we can follow back and try to get them. I understand
I
it's not
appreciate
the
that.
optimal situation.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to interrogate them. These were all the questions. Because what I did is on my team, I took a ton of phone calls on questions about this. So what I tried to do is aggregate the questions, put them into buckets, and then try and separate those buckets so there was no repeating. I'm trying to streamline this actual conversation by having specific questions, specifically that would have been for Doug, but I still feel as though I can't just not let them go because everybody did their job. So I'm not trying to box you in the corner. Okay. All right. So I guess, some of my other questions, and I'll just kind of run through these, but I think maybe to your point, Joe, is we may need to reconvene this meeting so that we can have, because I have like 2 pages of questions and I know I forwarded some, or I shouldn't say I worked with Judy and with Vince and a couple other team players to try and narrow these questions down. I believe they were sent to Erica through Chuck or whatever, and they were kind of dispersed that way because I understand Open Meetings Act. I just can't throw them out to everybody. So I tried to make sure we followed the protocol.
Hugh and I can continue to answer as many questions as we can on Doug's behalf.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
all right. So
And on some of the ARPA funds, if you want, I know Jennifer may be able to answer some of those. I don't know if you want.
I think we've got
Okay.
a fair picture,
Great.
picture.
Okay.
So I guess now this is the drill down is a little bit so if you had $1 million sitting in an account, was it in an interest bearing account?
Yes.
Yes, it was. Okay. So we have $1 million plus laying around or?
No.
Is this a reimbursement, Jennifer, then?
No, the county board,
They
no.
actually have the money in their bank
Yeah,
account.
the county board allocated the money directly to them whenever we did it 4 or 5 years ago. So they have that money. It was giving them with clear direction. And I know, Julie, you're looking confused, but that was a county board decision. So we meet ARPA as a team with all these dollars. We meet probably, it was once a month. Now we're meeting every 2 weeks to know where these dollars are going. I have a regular conversation with people, with agencies that still have a lot of money. And you asked why $1 million now is because, and I believe Doug shared this with last meeting, is because what they originally were intending was to help with facade and improvements to building, but it became too difficult because one was cost and 2, you deal with some of these entity procurement. So it became too difficult. So he shifted, right? Like we all have with ARPA, like many agencies have shifted with ARPA dollars. If what they did, we worked with municipalities throughout this county, helping a lot of your municipalities, and what they wanted didn't work. So instead of just taking the money back, we helped them shift. And so this was one of those examples where it was shifted. It didn't, what he originally intended for wasn't working. So this is what his solution was.
Yeah. So was it in an interest-bearing account?
Yes, I
Yes.
believe,
Yeah,
yes,
okay, all
yes,
right,
yeah.
All right,
Mhm.
okay.
But, and just like ours, that is separate from what we have to do with ARPA and reporting, just so you
Okay,
know.
understand. Thank you very much for the
Any-
clarification,
yeah.
Jennifer. So,
Anything else with ARPA?
oh, yeah, good question, Vince. Is there a deadline when, I know
Yes.
it's December, whatever.
Yeah, we have
But
to, yeah, we,
It's not like we have to make a decision tonight or tomorrow or Thursday or that.
I believe, and again, I'd have to look at the contract because the board did it differently with CED. Like I said, they gave the money. Most of these other entities where we are reimbursing. So I would have to look at the contract again to see if it was like the other ones, which was about October 30th, I believe, is when every dollar has to be spent.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems correct.
Spent or identified and ultimately spent by December.
It has to be spent, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because I am aware that Cook County does have a land bank and their documentation is a lot more detailed than what we have in front of us. And I'd like to see, I know Doug mentioned at some time he looked at others and that, and I think what we want to do is incorporate some of that language because I believe inside that, the Cook County language, it's very good. And helps define the role of the land bank under the CED with a lot greater detail. So that would be something that I think we should consider. So I know you can't answer this either, Hugh, but so what guardrails are going to be put in can the county put in to make sure that this thing stays on course aside from just putting on the speaker chair or, because it is, I'll say it, it's taxpayer $1 million, but it's our $1 million.
Yeah.
And you're a not-for-profit. And when I went to try and look for your financials, books, income statement, things like that, you can't find that detail.
Yeah, so the governmental league set up separate from how this is
Understand, yeah.
all totally different. But for the Cook County, as far as like the detail, if you're talking about things like, their policies and procedures manual, some of their information that they have about how they'll acquire property, some of their procurement stuff, those are all things that we intend to do. Most of those are board functions, is board of the land bank functions as opposed to the county board's functions. It would be up to those individuals that are a part of, and by individuals, I mean individual communities, et cetera, that are part of it that would be responsible for developing those. As far as guardrails, you have the ordinance of what we can do and can't do. If you want to change that, you're certainly entitled to do that.
State
I-
statute.
We have state statute that we have to follow. The same as any other entity that's established in these types of areas. The Joliet Arsenal Development Authority is one of the government entities. Hang on. Sorry. Yeah, it's one of these government entities that's separate from anyone else. It's governed by its board. This would be a similar thing, just you happen to be the ones that are creating it and sending it off.
Yeah, okay. So, because going back, Joe, what I said before is I tried to make this so there wasn't a free-for-all in questions. The questions that were provided were basically broken up into like 10 categories. I believe, Hugh, you have
I do.
that list? Okay. And I'm not trying to not let anybody else talk. How do you want me to proceed
Yeah.
with these?
My suggestion, Jim, and I want to say I do appreciate you gathering all the questions coming from you, but I do see other members.
And that
So-
I want to be courteous to
Yeah,
everybody else.
if
though.
we can let the other members maybe ask their questions and maybe it will cover some of yours, and then I will absolutely give you the opportunity to finish up.
Okay.
Or we'll just play it by ear.
Great, yeah, and I just wanted to kind of,
Yeah.
I didn't want it to
Yeah,
become a free.
no,
so
I
thank you.
appreciate that. So let me move on and then we'll definitely come
Thank
back to you.
Would you like me to just try and answer this list? Just go down it? Or do you want to? Okay. Yeah. No, I understand. I just didn't know if this was, comprehensive. I'd just go down.
If those questions don't get answered, then we'll let you
Okay.
follow up and try to answer them
Sure.
at the end. So
Okay.
I appreciate everybody's patience on that. Thank you, Leader Richmond. Member Newquist.
Thank you. I have two questions. One is, I'm generally in favor of this, first of all, let me start out by saying, but my concern is, will all municipalities that want to have an opportunity to participate in this? I was a
Yes.
little bit confused about being a member and not being a member. There was a section about other governmental entities. So if I'm, say, Crete, Illinois, and I want to participate in this, do I just raise my hand and say, hey, I want to be a member?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That was a big question for me. And then,
They would have to pass the IGA that to become a
Right,
member,
they'd have to
but
enter it.
yes.
but there's no limit, right?
Correct.
Like, in other words, you're not saying only the first, 10 municipalities. Okay.
No.
And then my other question is, I'm a little unclear about what the county's role is from a financial standpoint. I mean, other than, the initial ARPA dollar grant, because I know the land bank will have the ability to enter into loans and things like that. And eventually, I'm assuming this will be self-funding. But in the beginning, is everything going to come straight from that $1 million, or are you looking to the county for any other type of financial?
No, certainly for the establishment of it, and then what we see as the foreseeable future, there would be no ask of the county for additional funds.
And we have no fiduciary responsibility.
Correct. It
Okay.
becomes its own entity, and it's basically no longer your problem.
Well, but I guess I was wondering, because since the county board will have board members
Mhm.
on the land bank board, and I know that individual land bank members are not, responsible, the land bank is as a whole, that does not assume any other like fiduciary responsibility on the part of the county.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Logan? I saw you turn your light off. Did you want to defer?
I can wait. Yes, thank you. I can wait.
Okay, thank you. Member Hickey, good morning.
Good morning. So nice to see you.
It's good to be seen.
Yeah.
If you're talking to me.
Thanks so much for being here, and thanks for taking my call. I appreciated talking to you. You answered a lot of my questions. I'm a big supporter of Will County using this tool. Many of you know I come from Southern Illinois. We have, the community I'm from has a lot of blighted areas that have grown over my lifetime, but they all started with one property. And if you can turn that around, you can really change the trajectory of a community. So I'm really impressed with the thought that's gone into this. So I hope that we're able to address this in a favorable way. Right now, there's no single blanket law governing land banks, right? There've been a couple of House bills that have been proposed, but they haven't gone anywhere, right?
You do have the state statute that enables land banks, that governs them, yes.
Okay. So one of the things that we talked about a little bit that I just want to make sure that is made public is the measurement of success of this tool. What is the plan there? Is it tax base growth? Is it housing outcomes? Is it reduction in vacancies?
Yeah, I think that the reduction in blighted properties is going to be your measure of success, because whether that means a tear down, whether that means a rehab, getting it back onto the tax rolls is really the measure of success. Obviously, with a tear down, you're talking about a different level of impact than a rehab.
Sure.
But getting those properties dealt with is the measure of success. And we're in a fortunate position in Will County. There's like 1,500 properties countywide that are currently listed as vacant or abandoned. So we're in a position where it's a very small amount relative to the number of properties in Will County. So, if you tagged it to a dollar amount, you're probably gonna look like you're not getting a lot done.
Sure.
But if you look at, we got 6 properties off the, out of a state of disrepair where they were abandoned or vacant, or tore them down and put in a community garden or whatever you want to do.
Sure.
those would be your successes, and that's how you would measure it. I think trying to tag a direct dollar value to it and say, okay, it's successful the minute it makes the $1 million back, sure, but you know, I think the value is in getting those properties back to be functioning in some way, whether it's torn down and cleaned up or back on the market.
So qualitative rather than quantitative, and much like all of us choose where we want to live, it's usually not with a spreadsheet like my husband makes, but anyway. Okay, when I look at the IGA, I did have a couple of areas that are concerned, just that I'd like to see tightened up. And I know that when Mr. O'Hara and I talked, a lot of these things, this is like just the start of this. Once the board is in place, those policies and procedures will be nailed down. But there are just a couple that, you know, the conflict of interest enforcement piece, it really doesn't say how it's going to be enforced. There is a lot of information about, you know, that it's going to be self-attestation by the members. And I wouldn't be as concerned about it, except that right now, the way that it's set up, the board is only obliged to meet annually, and the chair has interim policy authority. And so that's putting a lot of power in one person's hands. And I know we're talking about small transactions at the beginning, but I just wanted to know, do you have any thoughts about tightening that language up, or?
Yeah, I think when it comes to like the frequency of the land bank meetings, yes, it's required. You have to meet once a year per ordinance. That's in practice, that's probably unlikely.
Okay.
Maybe 10, 12 years from now, if you have a land bank that's functioned great and we're wrapping up and hopefully getting the last properties out the door or whatever, and they only need to meet once a year, so be it. In the beginning, they're probably going to need to meet much more frequently. You're certainly going to have a lengthy discussion about bylaws and procurement policy for how you're going to purchase these properties and all these other things that are going to have to be decided. So yes, it says you have to meet once a year. I envision this as meeting much more regularly for a significant period of time. You know, certainly the first couple of years, they're going to have to meet more regularly just to come up with the basics of it. You know, that's going to take multiple meetings. So, you know, whether you put it that they have to meet once a year, twice a year, 4 times a year, I don't know. I'm not huge on prescriptive meetings, but
Sure.
I think that, you know, it will meet regularly. The meetings have to be open. You know, as far as the conflict of interest, ultimately, all you can do really is have the people attest that they don't have a conflict. You know, the CED board meetings, you have to do it at the beginning of every meeting. Does anyone have a conflict today? And as with many boards, you sign a conflict of interest policy every single year. So I think that as long as you're doing that, and as long as there's a paper trail for if there were ever a problem or an accusation of some type of thing, that we had all the documentation that says that we were told that they weren't, you know, ultimately you can't stop someone that's going to do something untoward.
Sure.
But looking at who the makeup of this is going to be, I'm not particularly worried about that happening.
Yeah, right. Much like all of this body has to sign the statements of economic interest annually.
Yep.
Those are all done. And then, you know, nobody is actually going through and going through our bank accounts necessarily, but it is something that is enforceable.
Yeah.
So that's okay. And then the only other issue is audits and public facing information. And I know this gets tricky, especially when we're talking about properties that may be in the selection process, because obviously we don't want people going out and purchasing adjacent properties because, you know, at a discount when
Yeah.
this improvement is coming to town. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you put the audits out and you put what properties you have, people are going to know already. So, I mean, it's not like they're not going to know that these have been purchased. You have open meetings. So I don't think that would be a huge issue. I think that if you look at the other ones and the amount of public facing information that they have, that it is out there. There obviously are things, you know, everybody can have, everybody like this can have an executive closed session where, you know, maybe some of those things get discussed. But even that ultimately at some point or another ends up as public information. So, you know, I don't think there will be a problem getting all that information out to the public and
Okay.
doing it in a way that's responsible so that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot.
Absolutely, absolutely. But is there a plan for auditing?
There will have to be audits conducted. Yes.
Okay. And did I just, is that in the IGA or did I just miss that?
I believe it is in, Kayla's telling me 10.08.
10.08.
Does that conclude your
It is,
question?
it does. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank
Right,
you.
yeah. Moving on to Mr. Balich. Good morning.
Good morning. I know Erica's going to talk later about the equity problem, you know, with the Supreme Court ruling with Hennessy and Tyler. But I have a question. Earlier, when you started this, and this probably goes to Kayla. You're going to be self-sustaining eventually. How will you be self-sustaining when a policy, for me to vote on it, I want to see that the county has no responsibility for liability at all, and the county has no tax dollars that will ever have to go into it. And I want to see the word never go into it, because otherwise it becomes a burden on our taxpayers. And, you know, like when you're talking about, you know, you're going to get rid of these blighted properties, well, there's a lot of money in land. So the equity in that, plus the cost to repair things, you only got $1 million. You can probably only do 5 houses or
The
very most 10 houses.
So the equity issue applies to the tax sale properties. If the land bank comes in and purchases a property from a willing seller, which is, there's no eminent domain here, there's no forced sales. If you're going in and purchasing it from a willing seller,
Right.
you don't owe them anything beyond
That's
the purchase
correct.
price.
But when I'm
But-
saying
but
if
we're
you
not-
take it, if the county takes the property and you're getting it from,
We're not, for the, minus the 116 properties that Tim has, we're not touching any of the properties, and probably those we wouldn't touch either. The tax delinquent properties are the least likely scenario for the land bank to get property. Because you don't want to jump in where the market's already working. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're bidding against private investors. You don't want to find yourself using public dollars bidding up price. You just don't want to do that, right? You want the market to work
Right.
as the market should work. So there really aren't properties that have value in them that are left after that happens. Is Mr. Brophy said at the last meeting, these are properties that no one will pay $800 for, which is it $801 or something? $810 for. So, and those properties are the ones we're talking about, the 2-foot by 10-foot strips or things like that, where at most you're just going to be trying to move them, as we talked about with Ms. Trainier, to your neighbor or something like that. The vast majority of these properties would be things that the land use would, or that the land bank would purchase at, you know, just that are available out there today. So you don't have that problem that comes up with the equity in it, like the Hennepin versus Tyler case.
right. No, I get that, Clark. So in other words, you're just buying property at a low price because owner glad to get rid of it.
Correct.
Okay, so that works.
Yes.
But the county, I don't ever want to see the county liable for anything. And I don't want to see any tax dollars go. If we're going to do a land bank, it's got to be the land bank that's responsible for all the liability and all the money and any lawsuits.
Yeah, so it becomes its own entity separate from the county. It's no longer connected to the county in any way when it's created. It's its own entity. It's not a division of Will County. It's its own section of government, for lack of a better term.
So when you buy a piece of property, what you're talking about, that's basically how you become self-sustaining. You buy a piece of property for $10,000 and
Sure.
the land's probably worth 20,000, say. And then you turn around and you put a house on it or a rental or something.
Mhm.
And then you sell it to a broker that's going to sell it and make some money.
Mhm.
That's how you make a profit off of your
Correct.
purchase.
Yes.
So basically, it's the same thing as a real estate company that goes in and buys blighted properties.
It is, but what you can do with a land bank is, one, only try to get your money back. So if you eliminate some of the profit desires of the private market, you eliminate that, you can get them for a little less, right? The land bank is there to help fill in that gap where if the land bank's able to purchase it, able to work with a developer on it and get it back, yeah, it's similar to that, but it's when you take out the need to make money, you can get them back on the market quicker. You can get them back for less cost. And ideally, you're only going to get back what you put into it, so that effectively it's just rotating that $1 million over and over again.
You're not going to buy something for $10,000, put $20,000 into it, that's $30,000.
Yeah.
And then not sell it for
Less than
market
30.
value, which would be maybe $100,000. So you're going to be selling things, you're going to sell it for close to market, or a little, maybe 10% less than market value. You're not going to give it away for what you've got into it.
No.
So you're going to make your money like a realtor would do when they buy property. So I get it.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure the county has zero liability for anything
Hey,
and zero tax dollars. That's
Steve,
it.
I'm being told if you review in the IGA, section 10.06, that may explain what you're looking for. Does everyone have a copy of the IGA in front of them? It's on the agenda. So you might want to review 10.06 and see if that satisfies your question. Member Winfrey, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Excuse me. Hugh, just a couple quick questions. One is the county is going to create the ordinance that sets up the land bank and how it operates. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then within that ordinance, we have the opportunity to just designate separate sections for residential land banks and for commercial land banks and what those guide rails would be. For example, in our residential land bank, we can say if the property is in a single family home area, that no other property can be built on there other than single family or at the most 2 unit, or it can become a park or whatever, something like that. Is that correct?
No. As far as what you could build on it, it would be whatever is allowed within the zoning. And we would work with the municipality on what they would like to see in that space.
Okay.
We don't want this to be Build Act, Will County. This is meant to be working with municipalities as partners.
Okay.
So, if we were to build one in a neighborhood where, yes, you have single family homes, but they've been turned into apartments or subdivided, maybe you do put up a 2-flat or a 3-flat, but again, you would do that in conjunction with the governing body of that community. So depending on what the municipality wanted for that area, that's what we would attempt to
Okay.
accomplish.
So we wouldn't exceed existing regulations?
No.
Okay. And then the last piece would be that if we were using the land bank, it would be a way of steering to improve stressed communities. For instance, if a neighborhood is starting to turn down at the heels, so to speak, we could target some of those places and lift them back up so that neighborhood does not go to slum. Or the same thing with commercial property. If we have a strip mall and so many pieces of it have become vacant, have abandoned, we can pick those back up and improve the overall look of the street, of the neighborhood, whatever.
Correct.
And and again, we are not a part of the money. This, because I don't want to manage your budget or the CED's budget. This is just about us being able to put together an ordinance that says how we want to operate in conjunction with all the other municipalities in Will County in order to provide a way for us to put property back on the tax rolls.
Yeah, and just to be clear, when I said the commercial side and the residential side, that was, my suggestion is that you change the language to include 2 Realtor professionals on there,
Mhm.
one from the commercial side and one from the residential, because those are all very different.
Right, but
Different
we could do a
markets.
subset in the ordinance that divides them as well, more or less, that we can require. Maybe that's a better way to say it, so that we are separating residential and commercial so that people understand that the same rules do not apply for commercial and residential.
Well, I mean,
In terms of what the guardrails are.
yeah,
So if
I-
it's commercial, and by that I mean, if it's a commercial area, obviously we want to go back in commercial unless that municipality is changing the look of that neighborhood. Or if it's residential, we want to continue with residential unless that municipality has designated that to be something else.
yeah, we'd have to follow all local zoning. We would, whether it's their zoning rules or their comp plan, again, we have to work with we would work with the municipality. So if the property's commercial and they're like, they want it to be more residential in that area,
They could
we'll
shift,
do
yeah.
what they tell us to do, basically is where we're at.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Member Berkowitz, good morning.
Good morning. I've got a few questions for Hugh, but also for Treasurer Brophy. There's a couple things I'm not clear about. So you indicated that the properties would be, you would have a representative from the municipalities. So let's say the property is located in New Lenox. You would confer with New Lenox. What about the properties, though, that lie in unincorporated and would come before the jurisdiction of the county board, the Land Use Development Committee? Are we giving that up? Because I don't see how the county has no relationship to this land bank.
No, the county, you'd still have to go through all the normal processes, procedures for any type of redevelopment or even to get a tear down permit. We'd still have to come back to the county.
Unincorporated, it's going to come before the land use.
Yes, it would go
committee.
through your normal process.
Okay.
Same as any other private citizen, developer, whatever your normal rules are, the land bank has to follow them.
And if the Build Act does come back and they do pass it, all of this is irrelevant anyways.
No,
Correct.
no, that's not true.
So
The Build
well,
Act is very different from land banking. The Build Act is prescriptive zoning. The land
you
bank
will
is-
still have to comply with the Build Act if they do bring it back and get it passed.
Well, the municipalities would have to comply with the Build Act. The land bank would then have to comply with whatever the zoning regulations are for each individual community.
Which would go to state statute. Okay, so some of the questions I have, you mentioned that other communities have similar proposals. I'd like to know which communities, who they are. And are they communities that would join this land bank if it was created?
Are you talking about when I said that Joliet has the opportunity to go to a
You
different
mentioned
land bank?
other communities.
Yeah.
You didn't say which
Yeah,
one.
Mayor Rudez is here. He's behind a pole back there. But University Park, he can maybe talk about, they've had
So
success. So
University
University
Park-
Park is one that has said that they might be interested. Communities are going to have to look at at what they have, what the land bank can do, and see if they even have properties in their community that they want to
Okay.
use for a land bank. There are a lot of our communities that are in the great position. They don't have a need for the land bank. The land bank is only going to help those communities that want/need this help.
All right, thank you. And then you mentioned Joliet is in the South Cook Land Bank, but,
It could be.
but they're,
They do have a potential for a seat there, yes.
okay, they're not in it yet, but there's potential. But you mentioned that there's a criticism on how long they tend to keep their properties.
Yes.
So that indicates to me that that's an issue. If there's an issue with a land bank keeping properties too long, how do we prevent that from happening here? So that's a concern. I think we need more information about that, because if that's an existing problem, we certainly want to be proactive and make sure that we don't get in that same situation.
I would recommend look at the Central Illinois Land Bank's policies and procedures that they've established.
Well, my point is that
and
if it
they-
is an issue that is occurring, then that's
And
a
they have
concern.
that taken care of in there. They have in their rules, they have a 5-year limit that they are supposed to be holding property for.
Okay, so perhaps staff can provide that with us, with the board members. And then you mentioned there may be properties that you would have a strategic hold on. What is a strategic hold?
I'll give you an example of, this was years ago. The Village of Bolingbrook was made sure that they held on to property that they had at 355 and Boughton Road. That became the IKEA, the Promenade, all of that. For years, they held off on developments at that property because as at any interchange, what's gonna show up? Gas station, McDonald's, some other fast food thing, et cetera. They strategically held on to some of that property so that they would have that to turn into retail development, because they wanted that to come there. They knew that at some point 355 would expand, you'd have all this traffic, et cetera. So that would be an example of strategically holding on to property. Other communities have properties where they, for just as an example, they may think that they need a public works facility down the road or something like that, where they're holding property. You can do that same thing in an area where it's going to turn into commercial, retail, or residential. And if you want, as a community, to really do something specific at that site, the municipality may want to purchase that property themselves, particularly if it's a vacant property. They may want to purchase that, hold it so that they can control what goes at that specific corner or that set of parcels. So that you don't just get whatever the first guy to come along and purchase the property and want to put something up there. So that would be an example of a strategic hold. In those cases, you may hold them longer than 5 years, but again, I don't think that would be a big portion of what the land bank would do, because municipalities can do that largely on their
And
own.
who is responsible for the taxes for that land that's
Well,
in a
it becomes-
strategic hold?
If a municipality owns it, it's their property. If the land bank owns it, it'd be whatever rules govern the land bank's tax responsibility.
Who would that be? If the land bank owns it?
So if the land bank owns it, it's the land bank, the way I understand it, isn't going to pay the property tax on it because it's the government owning it. So
So we
that
would-
period of time, you wouldn't be getting any.
We would not be, okay.
Yeah,
We wouldn't be collecting any property tax on those parcels.
the way I understand it, yes.
I think we need to have more clarification and thoroughly think that through, because that puts additional burden on the surrounding area and the taxpayers there. You mentioned with the $1 million, you can only start out with a few properties. How many would that be?
How much would the $1 million be able to
Yeah,
purchase?
you mentioned it would
it-
only be a few.
It depends what the properties that the members wanted us to go after initially would be. I can't tell you that we're going to buy 5 properties for $100,000 each. We don't know what properties we're going to buy. We don't know which community is going to sign up first to be a member or sign up
Yeah.
last. It depends on what communities join and what properties they'd prefer us to go after.
Thank you. So I've got other questions which I would like to provide so we can get answers in the future regarding this. But just to finish up, I have a few concerns that I want to run past the state's attorney and also Treasurer Brophy. Given that this is something that the Will County Board is, by our vote, creating another intergovernmental body which is going to be handling properties that may not even be paying property taxes. I have a lot of concerns, and I think the county board needs to be able to have the opportunity to talk with our state's attorney. I would like to see copies of the state statutes so we can review them. There was also a state statute that Hugh, you referred to. I'd like to have that state statute, be able to read it and understand it, and then also, be able to discuss this with our state's attorney and make sure we are all on the same page and we have our questions answered. Does that sound fair? Kevin, you're shaking your head. Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, thank you, because we are creating another intergovernmental body, which does not ever really come back to the board for any approval or in section, the one section, section 6.03, I'd like to discuss with you. I really think that under that section, that those directors should come back before the county board, not elected between the pool of, within the land bank. Now, if there's no concern with that, that's great, but I think we need to be able to have a discussion about that and have completely understand all of the elements of this land bank. And then the last question I had was for Treasurer Brophy, if he could come up to the podium.
Is he here? Sure. And I think it's been stated many times that this board of the land bank is made up of all the municipalities that want to partake in this program. And for the county board to tell the municipalities, to have them to come back to the county board for any such approval. I mean, we do have a separate committee that's made up for the land bank, and those mayors and those participants, they know better on what properties they would like to see.
I understand, but when we're allowing a land bank to take properties off of the tax rolls and hold them for an undefined amount of time, that's putting a burden on the taxpayers, the surrounding taxpayers. We have to take that very seriously. So thank you. I look forward to that opportunity to talk to the state's attorney and answer all our questions. Again, Treasurer Brophy, thank you for being here. Okay, so now we have had, it's been mentioned again that we have 116 parcels. Basically, most of them, I guess, are side lot parcels. And we have 1,500 listed vacant or abandoned. I've asked that the board members be provided that information, but I still haven't seen it. So I'm asking again, I'd like to just have that information given to us as a board. Where I'd like to see,
Sure.
is there, what's in North Naperville? I want to
the-
understand.
The surplus property book comes out once a year. Your
No, you can
Free to-
provide it to us, I think, and
Sure, we can get the addresses from the trustee. Trustee holds them, then for the rest of the year, those that don't get sold are held, and those are the 116 we were talking about. They're still held by the Will County trustee. We can get you those addresses, certainly.
absolutely.
Some don't have addresses.
Okay.
They're described as, by measurement.
Can you add the county board district it's in? Is that possible?
I will ask the trustee if he
Okay.
can do that. Yeah.
And also the 1,500 that are called vacant or abandoned, why would you differentiate this 116 from the 1,500? Is it
So the
size?
116 have been through the cycle. They didn't pay taxes. They went to tax sale. Nobody bought them. We held them for 3 years. We put them in a surplus book, and they're still not purchased. That estimate of 1,500 vacant and abandoned are private. We have no information about those. That's an estimate, I believe, from CMAPS. Community data has estimated there are that many in Will County.
What do you mean,
don't-
we have no information about them?
Well, we have 284,000 parcels in Will County.
Mhm.
This 1,500 is what CMAP is calling abandoned or otherwise vacant. I don't know what their data is, where they
They-
get their data. Do we know?
But
So apparently municipalities will provide this information to them. And I don't know if CMAP is something we have access to. Does anybody know?
so,
Okay, so it's
so
public
doesn't
info.
the county, however, still have the possession of those 1,500 properties?
No, those aren't,
No?
those are still in private hands.
They're in private hands, so you don't ever issue a property tax bill? There's no document?
Sure, we
Well-
send
Well,
bills.
that's what I mean. We still have, there's still, they still answer to the county and he should be paying property
They are
taxes
paying
like
taxes.
everybody else.
They are paying taxes.
The taxes are being paid, but
Okay,
they're vacant or abandoned. And so I think in this country, I can own a piece of property and leave it vacant as long as I cover my obligations of maintenance and paying property taxes. So you can't force me to do anything with it if it's vacant. It just happens to be vacant. So there's nothing on it yet as far as a building improvement.
mhm.
So nothing wrong with a vacant piece of property. The abandoned ones, I imagine, are those
The
that,
property taxes on abandoned.
yeah, if they
As well.
weren't paying taxes, they would be sold at the tax sale.
Okay,
They would
And
be
then
part of the
they'd go-
116 that he
They'd go through
mentioned.
the process, yeah. So
I-
we know a lot about them once
Okay.
they failed to pay
Okay.
taxes, then we know a lot about them. But as long as they're paying taxes, we don't know. I don't know if your neighbors are paying there are a lot of parcels in a lot of different municipalities that may be included.
well, I have a great suggestion for the 116 properties. We did this in Chicago. They'd make nice community gardens, work with 4-H. 4-H is a great organization. They're out there. They work in the urban environment. It's a great opportunity. People want more open space. They're tired of development, and it may be a great accent in those areas. I think it's something we could look at. And my biggest concern is we're taking taxpayer dollars, 1 million to start this. And I really have a lot of concerns about that.
I think you need to look at the alternative, because these are parcels that aren't in use now. Some of them are not paying taxes now. The alternative is what? Mayor Joe from University Park had 200 and some when he took office. They're down to the teens now because of this effort that they've made through a land bank. So he can tell the success story, and so there's some success there that we may want to follow. Thank you.
All right, I had Member Ortiz next. Are you ready?
Sorry, it took.
Thank you, Chairman Van Dyne. Why don't I just start off with saying that suit really just makes the blue in your eyes just pop. It's so.
What do you want?
Yeah, that's,
Last week, I was a 50-year-old man sitting up here.
Joe, we're moving forward.
Joe, you're in trouble.
Got strategic plan. We had a good day yesterday, me and you.
Mhm.
you have children, you know what's coming next. I was gonna ask if we could please take a 5-minute break just to use the restroom. Also, though, if it is possible, if not, totally fine. If at all possible, could we please maybe put my Green Line addition, just so I can run through it fairly quickly? I don't believe I have many questions, although actually I do. Member Hickey just brought up a point, and I just wanted to clarify. Is this IGA at all any different from the one that was posted in July at the July meeting?
Yes. I'm not sure why, to be frank. I don't know, but it is different than the one from the last meeting. Some of the sections were moved. Again,
But the language is all the same, right?
there are a couple changes based on recommendations at the last executive committee meeting.
Okay, because my suggestions are going to be based off of the last, so I'm not sure what was added. If we could, I would like to get those red line just so we can be clearer.
The agenda that's, or the resolution that's posted online in this item here is the red line version based upon the amendments that were suggested at the last executive committee meeting. That's correct, Jackie?
I don't think.
They are red line, yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at a red line one, yeah. Yeah. Well, it was the speaker was the one thing, and then there was one other issue.
Oh, so there was only 2 red lines.
Yeah, there were only two red line issues from the last executive committee meeting. And the governmentally, correct, right.
So I don't think there was changes then. I don't think.
And I'm sorry, Member Ortiz, what did you ask for your,
So
to be-
I had sent out a few documents, but one of the documents was actually like language written into the actual IGA. Just some suggestions that I think we could consider, and I think that most of us would agree upon as I'm hearing the discussion moving forward. I don't want to take up too much of the time, but I did just kind of want to brush over them just so that everybody knows what's in it, if possible. If not, totally okay.
let's see if we have access to that.
Okay. But could we take a 5-minute break possibly?
Are you folks okay with taking a 5-minute recess so we can brush up and whatnot? And maybe Hugh and Kayla can get some more water or that. All right, let's recess until 10:40. That'll
you.
give us 12 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Okay.
Traffic.
please. All right, back from recess at 10:44. We may continue before Member Ortiz continues. We do have some folks in the audience, and they're kind of on a time crunch. So I want to just give them an opportunity to say a few words before they go. So, Mr. O'Hara.
Yeah, first up, I'll ask Mayor Joe Rudez from the Village of University Park to come up. Joe's got a lot of experience in the community working to take over blighted properties and the successes that they've had. So Joe, if you want to come up, and he's just going to say a few words about the success that they've had in University Park.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to share my success stories. When I took office in 2019, it was listed that we had over 200 boarded up and abandoned properties in the Village of University Park. Today, I can proudly say that those properties are back on the tax roll. We have less than 20 boarded up and abandoned properties now, and development is soaring to new heights in the Village of University Park. We have attracted new families. They're paying taxes now, and it's a great tool to use for everyone. And I do have a couple of bullet points that I would like every board member to just take into consideration. If you just give me a few minutes. The land bank would return properties to productive use. A land bank is not a traditional financial institution. It is a public redevelopment organization created to acquire, hold, manage, and transfer properties that the private real estate market has been unable and unwilling to address. A Weld County Land Bank could help acquire vacant, abandoned, and tax delinquent properties, resolve title defects, unpaid taxes, liens, and other obstacles, secure and maintain properties until redevelopment occurs, demolish dangerous properties, structures that cannot be rehabilitated, rehabilitate salvageable homes and commercial buildings, assemble multiple parcels for larger development projects, transfer properties to responsible homeowners, business, nonprofit organizations, and qualified developers, return previously unproductive properties to the tax rolls. The purpose would not be for the county to accumulate properties indefinitely. The purpose would be to move property from abandonment and uncertainty into responsible ownership and productive use. I'm living proof, and I would be the first municipality in Weld County to participate in the land bank. So I would ask you guys to take that into serious consideration. And I think that every resident in the township or municipality would greatly appreciate it, because no one, no matter what community you live in or what township, wants to have boarded up and abandoned properties in their things. So I appreciate you guys just giving me a few minutes on my experience, what's going on, because University Park is home to Governor State University. And we've taken those boarded up and abandoned properties, and now we've got students in the properties. We've got professors in the property. So it's a win-win for every opportunity. And it's just a way to transform communities into what people actually move into communities for. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
And if you'll indulge us one more time for, we have Bill Caton and Jen, whose last name I'm blanking on at the moment. I've been standing here a while right now. I knew it was a V. To discuss a little bit from the Realtor perspective, some of the projects that they've seen be successful with this, both on the residential and commercial side. So much like The Price is Right, come on down.
Jen Viano, I am the president of Three Rivers Association of Realtors, and I own Town Center Realty, which is right down the street here in downtown Joliet. And like they said, I'm more residential. Bill is obviously a commercial legend. So Bill, do you want to come up and
Good morning, everybody. Bill Caton, I'm with Caton Commercial. Been in this industry for 42 years. Some of the rocks were still warm along the river. But I've seen a lot of these institutions right here in Will County. I've dealt with them over the 40 years. Some of the names that you might remember is the old Holiday Inn on the Northeast Frontage Road, Route 52 and I-55. That sat there, okay, as a defunct hotel, went to a day and week and monthly rentals. Shorewood had police department there every day or multiple times. Same thing with another one of my properties right down the street from that, more recently developed, which was the old Howard Johnson. I remember in the 70s going there and having a smorgasbord and on Friday nights and so forth. Same thing, an investor there bought it from the tax sales on the north side of Chicago. He overpaid for it. Okay, he went to weekly and monthly rentals, same issue, buildings with a lot of maintenance and so forth. That property sat there with under full value and actually discouraged other developments in the area. We finally brought in a user, which was U-Haul. They cleaned up the site. It looks pretty. I can remember being at one of the Joliet meetings and one of the council members said, well, gee, that's the entrance to our city. We'd really like to have had, you know, a white tablecloth restaurant right there. And, you know, again, without the right incentives, that would never have happened because you have the airport behind you, you have a little vacancy, you have the funeral, the burial grounds, okay? What's the word I want?
Cemetery.
Cemetery, thank you. All right. So those are just several old examples, all right? But we can go to things today. I'm working with a group, a private individual that has village property surrounding it. The village wants to get rid of it. Private industry individual is retired, closed their business, and that the property is a great position and location, but until a master developer or somebody comes in and takes out that private owner, it is not going to go in the market, okay? So those are just examples, okay? Privately, myself, I just recently bought a property in Homewood because I've known that mayor for 30 years. He called me up and said, we have a village property we bought from taxes. It's in a jewel anchor center. It's causing properties next to it to go down. People have left. He said, give us an RFP. And so we went there and presented to that. And I put together a partnership. We put $1 million into that property, new roof, new sidewalks, new parking lot, new signs, new pylons, new landscaping. So now that property is being leased out and the properties adjacent to us, okay, are also getting interest. So these are some of the success stories that can happen in Will County. All right. The tax dollars, and Julie mentioned, you know, taking things off the rolls. It's just pausing them because once they come back on the rolls, they're going to come back, you know, sometimes 15-fold. You know, you take one property and put a hotel on it, okay, and you're looking at $300,000 a year in tax revenue, and on a property that's generating maybe $1,500 a year right now. So do that math. Locally, I know of a situation where a local municipality wants a hotel. Right now, the market for hotels is very soft in the Will County area. The ADA is down, the average daily rents and so forth. But this village has a site. They've attracted a 4-star hotel because they gave the property to them for $1. All right. And they're giving them a check for $5 million in TIF and tax incentives. That hotel, once there, will generate that money back in 3 to 5 years. All right. So you're not losing taxes, you're pausing taxes. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, made a special exception. We did take a copy of your suggestions and put it on a thumb drive. So if we could pull that up. Does that satisfy what you want to explain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate this, putting this up here so we can follow along together. I know we've already been a very long meeting, so I'm going to kind of just roll past these. And then if you have any questions, feel free to find me afterwards. But the idea behind these here, I'm sorry, let me pull this up. So I started with, well, I just really went in order. So Board of Directors, one of the suggestions that I made is to, and this is all up for discussion, obviously. If people feel that we should keep the board chair speaker and the executive, I would absolutely have no problem with that. I do just wanted to make sure that we did have the Democratic and Republican leaders on there as well, just so that the county board did feel a little bit more engaged since, you know, we are the creators of things. So that's why I added that into there. That was the idea behind that. Moving down to the experts, I did cross out some, though going back, I do want to like uncross the real estate one. But I do think it's really important that we add affordable housing or housing advocate on to the board, as well as environmental remediation or sustainability or environmental planning and urban regional load planners. Again, all up for discussion. These are just suggestions that I thought should be added. Moving down to 6.04 meetings. I do believe that we should put it into the IGA that we should meet more than just annually. I know that you said that you guys are obviously going to meet more, but I do want to have that in writing. So my suggestion was at least quarterly, though I'm sure when we first start up, it's probably going to be, I don't know, closer to monthly. So that was another suggestion I put. Moving down to 6.12, conflict of interest. Just going to read it off. Directors shall disclose any financial, business, development, campaign contribution, or immediate family interest related to any transaction before the board. But more importantly, I think it's really important that we put in here that the directors, officers, employees, and immediate family members shall be prohibited from purchasing land bank property during their service and for 1 year following the separation from the land bank. I think that is just best practice. I also believe that Cook County has that in their land bank. A lot of these are just things that I took out from the Will County Land Bank or that are best practices. And then I added one under that, 6.13 ethics training, that the Land Bank Board shall require annual ethics and Open Meetings Act trainings for board member. That's just, you know, you guys get new board members or just refreshers. We have to do ethics trainings. It's mandated. So I think that's best practice. Moving down to 8.01, acquisition of property. I did put in there because now that I'm hearing, and this is the first, full disclosure, the first land bank presentation that I did sit through. I was able to find all of the documentation online, but this was the first time that I actually was able to hear the presentation. So thank you for that. I know that you touched on, or kind of alluded to, that the board of directors would be the ones who were implementing or adopting, creating all of the acquisition and disposition policies. I think it's really important that we, as a board, have a say in we don't have to get into the nitty-gritty details, but I think a broad overview would be good just so that there's more direction on how exactly or where exactly, why exactly we want you to prioritize which neighborhoods, which houses which properties, and so that's kind of the idea behind that. Same thing goes with the disposition policies. Moving down to 8.02, that's just land bank shall require public engagement before adopting major policies. That's just, public hearing before we do a big change. We want to hear from the public just in case they have anything to add. Moving down, 8.03, the land bank, and I know we touched on this today, the land bank shall implement competitive bidding for major property transfers and require annual justification reports for properties held longer than 3 years. I know you were very adamant about we're not trying to be, holding on to properties, but you did allude to why, sometimes it might be justified, as in the case of Bolingbrook and the Promenade. So we would just want to make sure that we are being proactive and putting that in writing to make sure that we don't run into problems that they do have this South Suburban Land Bank where they're holding on to properties. We want to be a little bit proactive in that aspect. So moving down, 8.04, public notice shall be provided prior to disposition. I already touched on that. Let me see if there's anything else. This agreement shall contain performance benchmarks, construction timelines, clawback provisions, revisionary rights, yada, 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 all the good stuff. Moving down, this, I just spoke to our member Bullock, just brought this up to me as an issue of not concern, but she did raise the issue that this probably might be a little costly. I just thought, your environmental girl would throw this in here for discussion. If you wanted to adopt something like this, it's better to put it in than to leave it out and then always wonder what would been if we didn't do that. So that was the idea behind that. 9.01, bonding and borrowing. I think this one is kind of important though. Any borrowing shall be required approval by 2/3 votes of the board of directors. There should be notice given to all government members. And then any debt obligation exceeding $250,000 should be required approval by member governments. So I think those are all just, again, more guardrails. Going down, 10.01. This one for me was a big one. I know that, all of this stuff could be requested, but I feel that it should just be readily available. I think that is gonna go a long way, especially with the public. And I know with some of our colleagues here, I think that the land bank should be publicizing online agendas, minutes, audits, annual reports, policies, redevelopment agreements, and then they should keep and maintain online publication of the public property. And again, this is something I believe that Cook County Land Bank does. Okay, yes. So nothing new here, just things that we want to be adopting into ours. Since we're looking as them as the role models, we want to make sure that we're adopting their policies as well. Moving on, 10.02, quarterly reports, self-explanatory. 10.08, more reports, self-explanatory. Sorry, I know I've been talking for a long time. I think that might be it, so thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Some suggestions to consider.
Can I just make one comment on the suggested changes? Because there's one in particular, or two, I think that concern me. One is the adding a Republican and a Democrat as opposed to office holders concerns me. This entity is designed to be nonpartisan. While the county board is a partisan body, none of the municipalities in Will County are partisan bodies. They may have their own views, but they're nonpartisan bodies. And keeping the land bank nonpartisan, I think, is important. So I believe that tying it to the, and this is just my opinion, and for what it's worth, but I think tying that to partisan positions is a mistake. Bringing that into it, I guess why? I understand, you want to have a voice. I think that may be able to be accomplished a different way, but I'm very leery of dragging partisan politics into a nonpartisan quasi-governmental entity.
Right.
Yeah,
And I-
however you guys want to structure that is fine with me. Yeah, I just don't
My-
like the R&D.
No, and
spell.
I think that's great feedback. I actually really do appreciate that feedback. And I would agree with you. I think that we could then change it to, the idea behind it was to just get more board representation. It wasn't to have, like partisan. I think I just did that just so it seemed fair, you know what I mean? But I think if we just put 2 board members and then, you know, I guess the chair could determine who those people were, that would make the board feel like we had a little bit more representation. What was your other concern?
The changing of the, who the, I think they're just generically listed as like experts up there, right?
Okay, yeah.
The taking off real estate, you already mentioned that you were okay with, because I do think changing that to 2 reps makes sense.
Okay.
And then I think that the environmental concern can be handled by you want to have someone on there it's listed as having someone planning, engineering, et cetera. I think that what the concern is the environmental review. From looking at it as a whole body, that seems to be your concern. I think that if we have a professional in that space, they're going to already have some of that expertise. So I think that that's covered. The only other one is yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to remember all of them on that one. Yeah. Thank you for that suggestion. Yes.
Sorry.
I took some notes, but not quite fast enough. Yeah, I think that having, yep, there we go. I just wouldn't take out like banking and financing. We're going to need experts in that space. We're going to need an expert in economic development on there. We're going like, there's a reason that those experts are there and they're there standardly. Putting advocates on is generally concerning because they tend to be narrow focused on a specific, they're there for their policy issue only, and this is a more broad approach.
Yeah.
Certainly have no problem working with affordable housing advocates or talking about those issues, but I think putting someone on when it's their sole focus is that can tend to derail discussions down to issues that are, different than what the land bank is there for. So that's why I think the version that was there covered that, but I also, if that's the board's feeling, so be it, to put someone on. But that's my only concern is if you start putting advocates on, advocates do a great job of advocating for their issue. We're trying to look at this holistically, and they're just a portion of that, not necessarily someone you want on the board controlling discussion. But again, just same as you, just an opinion.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Mr. Logan.
Thank you. So I've got a ton of questions, and once again, unfortunately, these were designed for Doug, so hopefully we can get somewhere.
Do my best.
So broken windows is it's a philosophy that's been in law enforcement for decades. I am 100% for getting rid of those broken windows. And what I mean broken windows is the abandoned and vacant buildings lead to more crime and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm for this, but I have a lot of questions. And I'm not gonna, there's like 50 questions, so I'm not gonna ask them all. So just a couple of them. When I first heard about this, I actually contacted 3 mayor friends of mine because Doug said that the mayors were on board. Those 3 mayors had no clue what I was talking about. I don't know if they're up to date now or up to speed now, but so they
Depends on which ones you talk to.
And yes, and then I'll give them a call when I'm done here to see if they have been talked about. I love the fact that it pays for itself. I like that. What is the difference between vacant and abandoned?
One is a property that's just sitting there vacant that could be, it's vacant because there's just currently no one living in it. Abandoned is they've completely walked away and are just letting it rot. And not, and just completely walking away from the property, letting it collapse. If you look at some of those like photos that were in the slides, granted, they were from the Central Illinois one. But you might have like a former farm property where you've got buildings on it that are completely abandoned.
Tim explained it earlier, and correct me if I'm wrong, vacant is they're still paying their property taxes, just nothing is currently on the property, but abandoned is completely abandoned, not contributing. That was the difference he explained between the 116 properties and then what could be 1,500 or so plus, but the difference seems like it's.
The image there too, I think, shows you that would be abandoned.
Perfect. I just wanted to get that out there. Someone was asking me. Can we get a list of all the 116 or are they online already?
Those, I believe, are,
Yes.
as Tim
Okay.
said, is already online. The ones that are listed as vacant, abandoned, that's from CMAP's community snapshot of Will County. So that data came out of, they collect that from the municipalities.
Okay, and I did see that the county's not gonna have any type of indemnification type of thing. Can the land bank itself be sued?
Yes.
Okay, so there's liability there. What is underutilized and strategic properties?
So the strategic is what.
I know you're talking about buying like a city can buy some property so they can hold on to it.
Yeah. Similar to what Mr. Caton was describing, if you had a land bank, if you're familiar with that property and Joliet right there at 55 and 52, that was the Holiday Inn. If the land bank existed and the city said, you know, we're concerned about that property, the land bank could have purchased it and say held it until a developer came in. So that might be a strategic hold, where you're waiting for a specific type of developer because that's what the community is trying to get there. So that would be where you might hold property for a little bit longer. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So the South Suburban one, they go after like bad properties that, and this land bank that we're looking at doesn't specifically say that. Do we have a priority of like, are we going to go after ones that are eyesores and that we need to focus on? Or are we going to go after strategic ones? Or is there a hierarchy of how we're going to do that?
I think that it's envisioned is largely going after the ones that are already blighted, eyesores, et cetera. The strategic hold is just something that a land bank can do. I don't view it as that would be the primary or even secondary focus.
Okay, and then.
Because I think municipalities already have that ability to do it and hold
They
it
do,
on their
they
own,
do,
so.
They do. Property taxes so are we going to forgive the property taxes?
So when it depends. So if you're talking about the tax sales, that's one issue. If we're buying it from someone that's already paying taxes, then that's just as Bill described it, a pause on the property taxes.
And so will the land bank work with township assessors?
For
tax purposes?
Oh, for tax purposes. I mean, they'll let them know that they've obviously acquired the property, but it doesn't. We wouldn't be getting into anything until probably not those 116 properties where that would be impacted. So if you're talking about just purchasing any of the blighted properties, they're already currently paying taxes on it. So once it's owned by a government entity, then they wouldn't be, but that would only be
Yeah, because
for
I'm
that
just
period
thinking of
time.
like schools, libraries, fire districts. Are they on board with not getting their money or getting their money? Or how does this work into this whole process with the other taxing bodies? Because there's a lot of taxing bodies in Will County.
There are. I will be honest, I have not had conversations with the school districts or fire districts regarding it.
Should they be involved in this?
I mean, they could be.
School
Should they?
School districts are like 60% of our property.
Yeah, and I think we're talking about individual properties, not like some mass purchase where you're gonna really be changing an area's EAV or where you're really gonna be taking a large amount of dollars out of school districts or anything else. I mean, if you're talking about a property that's paying $5,000 in taxes and 3,000 of it's going to the schools, you're only going to miss that for a couple years, and
Yeah,
then
but
you
if we're
should be
doing $1
getting
million
more
in
back.
properties, that's
Spread across the
600,000.
whole county.
Yeah, but if it's
So-
$1 million in property taxes, that's 600,000 in schools,
To,
roughly.
again, spread over years, over the whole county, it's a very small percentage of any one district's budget. Now, if you did all of them in one school districts, yes, you could potentially have an impact on it. But if you're talking about doing this countywide, you're not going to have that many properties per school district.
Okay, and just to be clear, I'm for this, but
No,
there's so many questions. There's just so
it's a
many
very good question, and one that, like I said, I haven't personally talked to school districts or fire protection districts or
Okay.
those
Fire
that you asked.
protection, forest preserve, the list goes on and on.
It's never ending.
So I don't think I have any more questions. But I would love to I'd love to submit my questions to Doug or whoever
Yeah.
and get them answered, because I've got like 40 more questions and
Happy to work
I
on.
really don't want to put anybody in the
Yeah.
spot.
And I do know, to your point that you made at the beginning about some mayors not being aware of it. Part of the reason for that is that the land bank, a good number of Will County communities don't have a lot of blighted property that they're worried about. And that's a fortunate position that Will County finds itself in. So there are, I can tell you just in my conversations with mayors, there is a number of them that don't even want to know about the land bank. You know, it's just not going to be an issue for their community. But for those that it is going to help, it's an important tool in the toolbox for them.
Yeah, and I'm also curious how many are in actual Will County, so opposed to being municipal.
Yeah, that's also a good
Because if
question.
there's none that are in Will County, then this is kind of a moot point.
You mean in the unincorporated area? Yeah, you still have to start it either way, but
So considering that, do you have an address in mind for the first property?
absolutely not.
Okay. Oh, just starting the program with, okay. I was hoping you had an address, so, all right.
We have to know which communities want to join to start, right? So you have to get the community to sign up, depending on who comes in.
I guess that was
first.
my question, because if we have one in Will County unincorporated, we don't have to talk to the municipality. We can go after that one immediately.
You could, yes. Yeah.
So maybe we can take a look and see if we have any target properties like right now. Not now, obviously, but in the future.
Yeah, I understand what
And then we can do maybe even like a demo. This is how it looks. This is what it's going to cost. This is what the market's going to be, kind of a mock-up type of, to see if it's going to be profitable, if it's going to be an eyesore. Because I would hate to go to a property, rip something up, and then all of a sudden we've got asbestos everywhere and, you know, we struck oil or whatever, you know what I mean? So I think I'm done.
And one
Thank you, sir.
thing that we've talked about, and I know I talked about with several mayors, was, and I was waiting to bring this up, but the way that this is structured currently in it's 8.06, Community Representative Approval and Veto Authority, where it allows anything within the municipality, you know, you've got to get that community sign off. One issue that may solve that, because I know that it's a touchy subject, of the 1.5 mile planning area around municipalities, so that you don't have a situation where you have the county decides to do something, you know, put up, I know there was some concerns that the county would suddenly become like a developer of high density apartments right up against municipalities. Difficult for practical reasons, water, sewer being the big ones. But you could put in here that not only do they have to approve it within their corporate limits, you could amend it to saying that anything within their municipal planning area. I know that comes up a lot with solar, when that was more of a discussion topic, not what it is today, but the communities do spend time, dollars, money into what their planning area will look like, even though it's extraterritorial. So that could also provide some level of protection against some of those concerns that I have heard from mayors who did have concerns, was that the county could become a landlord that way. Practically speaking, you wouldn't build a high rise without water and sewer. You'd probably want to be on the municipal system and therefore you'd incorporate, but it could provide another level of protection.
Thank you. All right, let's, a couple new members that would like to speak. Member Freeman?
Thank you, Speaker Van Dyne. I just think there's a little bit of confusion still, and I just want to be sure we get it clarified. The property that we're looking at, those 116, they're not paying taxes now, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So there's no taxing, so to take a break on it for a little bit longer and make it taxable at the final end product, because that is the goal, right? To make it worth something.
The 116 are unlikely to ever be purchased by the land bank because the 116 are those strip properties that we've talked about that currently aren't paying any taxes at all. The land bank would work certainly to try and offload those where it can help, but there's a reason that they're sitting there today and aren't being taken up by anyone. So I think, the focus on those, yes, you're right. We're not collecting taxes currently on them. So if they ever get moved over, it would suddenly add to the tax base. And thank you for putting that down.
Yeah, okay, thank you. It's a poke you in the eye,
Yeah.
Mike's. Did you want to say something, Mr. Brophy? Or did he clear it up for you? You had it that way. I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
I just wanted to offer, I think you hit it. Those 116 are worth so little. They weren't purchased at a tax sale. They weren't purchased at a surplus sale. They're undesirable and unusable, unmarketable, most likely not part of land bank.
So to get them back to being
They won't.
part of society.
These are things that have probably been around for decades. Strips of land, when construction and development was a little sloppier in the past, there are pieces that just weren't, accounted for properly. Now we don't do that. Every inch is planned for now. But these old things are corners this size, right here. A strip of land this size along here. And neighbors are caring for them. Nothing is happening to them. The legal and procedural work necessary to take them to add it to the neighbor's property, take those 2 PIN numbers, make them one, give it to that neighbor is expensive. I mean, we could assign a state's attorney to do something like that, assistant state's attorney, but I think their time is more valuable. And so I think these 116 are going to stay around just over and over again. They just stay in the book.
Okay.
And I think we should stop spending a lot of effort on them and resources. It's too expensive to fix the problem. Jim and I would love to fix the problem. I know I'd like to have all 16 organized and fixed, but it just isn't feasible.
Okay.
Thank you.
My next question is, more directed to the state's attorney or Chuck. I don't know, you guys can battle it out up there. I'm sitting here and I'm assuming that you have looked at these IGAs with a fine tooth comb and you're good to go. Am I correct on that? Have you looked at these?
We've looked at them, and then we've also been getting comments, including today, that things that members would like to see. So, there's the general overall legal review of like, can we even do this? What are the parameters? But there's a lot of things, and there's been a lot of good comments that have come from the board members about, hey, I'd like to see this. I think this needs to be tightened up. So I would say whatever the final IGA, it's probably not this, because there's a number of things that you've all expressed interest in. And the corollary to that is because we'd be using this as an IGA, there's other municipalities that are going to be wanting their own input in this. So they may push back, and then, it's the back and forth of contract negotiation then. So we've looked at this, but I don't think this is what the final document's going to look like.
So since this is just informational meeting here, so we know this isn't the IGA. So come Thursday, what's the odds of us being able to vote on an IGA?
It doesn't sound to me like
I know that's.
I guess I'll even just say I'm seeing nodding heads here in the audience. But I think maybe Thursday, the idea is getting a commitment of whether the county's even interested in being part of a land bank.
And then the
process.
IGA would come later.
Right, because again, we don't have any other partners right now. Normally, when you see an IGA, it's an IGA between the city of Crest Hill and Will County or whatever. I think this is more preliminary step of, do we even want to be a part of this? And, are we going to be the one of the sponsoring agencies? So,
And I just for, since we are giving information, I did discuss with the state's attorney earlier, one of my concerns with the IGA is the board, as it is stated in the document at the IGA, it's not real clear and it bounces around. Sometimes it says land bank board, sometimes it doesn't. And it's like, I think that needs cleaned up a little bit. So I look forward to seeing what you have come up with. And when you do provide it to us, please give it to us in a written fine copy.
sure. And again, that there's a lot of ways to deal with this. And Eric and I have been perusing all the different land banks out there and how they've done it. And they've all done it very differently.
Okay.
Cook County is very different than the Central Illinois Land Bank versus DuPage, so there's a lot of ways this could look, and we'll be happy to accommodate whatever you guys want to have done.
Thank you. And I have one more. There was a question that came up about property owners who had vacant and abandoned property. And we can't force anybody who's been paying their taxes to sell their property. Am I correct?
Correct.
So if they have a dilapidated home, neglected home, they can get fined from the municipalities or our land use for whatever violation, but we can't force them to sell. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. That was all I have. Thank you very much.
And I would say one of the reasons for the broadness of the proposal before you is because you don't want to be too prescriptive, because to the point that you now have to go take this to other partners to get them to join, you kind of want to leave some of this with wiggle room for everyone's interpretation as you bring partners on. Yes, yeah.
Okay, we do have Member Bullock, and I think my suggestion at this time, I know, Mr. Richmond, you have a bunch of questions. Mr. Logan had said he does. Maybe I could ask the caucus leaders to compile a list of questioning. We can send it to Chuck. Chuck can send it along, and maybe we can present some kind of document with all the answers. That way, for the sake of time, because we could ask 1,000 questions and continue on for quite some time. I think we got a pretty good grasp of what the idea is here, but for the specific questions, let's get them documented. Let me go to Member Bullock.
I feel like you said that for my information specifically.
No, you haven't spoke yet.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to piggyback off of Micah a little bit just to get some clarification. Okay. So I understand that without an IGA, okay, we need to vote on whether or not we want to do a land bank, period. Correct.
Is that correct, Mr.
Get back in
Myers?
the chair and stay there. Well, he wants me to finish and we all want to go home before noon. I'm trying to.
Right. So I think, and that's what Chuck and I were just talking about. That's why so I think the idea is we're trying to get input here. There is an IGA on the agenda, but
That's not going to be the IGA. Because that's
again,
not,
yeah,
this does not include all the partners who are going to join and all that, right? So this is an idea of an IGA. We have given our feedback, in a sense, on the things we would like as a board to see in the IGA, correct? Right? And you have the ability to take or not take that and include it in the final document, which will then also be which will also include ideas from members who join the land bank.
potentially, yes. And
Okay.
those could be ideas the county's not comfortable with, and then.
Right.
I don't know.
What is our responsibility or outreach or whatever word, I can't think of a good one, in regards to this? Are we the be all end all of this document? Or is this document an idea and we've given our feedback? And once we say, yes, we want to do a land bank, we give approval for the land bank to start, then there's the whole outreach to all the different municipalities and all the municipalities join. And then this document gets finalized and makes its way back to us in 3 months, 4 months, whatever, maybe January, who knows? Then we vote on it. Or do we have the reach to say, ooh, still don't like this, we want this? Like, where does our reach begin and end?
To, I guess, the final point there of we still don't like this, hopefully that would be worked out amongst the lawyers and other officials to get a workable document that works for everybody before it comes to a full board vote. You know, if you're telling me, look, we can't have X, Y, and Z in this agreement, and it's a non-starter for the city of Joliet or somebody else, that's something that we'd work out just like a normal contract negotiation, and not get, if we can't get there, we can't get there. As to whether it would go back and forth, again, that just depends on whether the county thinks this is a worthwhile idea to go forward with. I don't know whether some other entities may want to do their own then if the county wasn't going to be a part of it. Again, I think everyone's on board here, but there's been no official action taken. And I think the key word there is it's intergovernmental. And right now it's just the county establishing what they think should be seen. So I think we're a little early in the process to know exactly how this is going to go.
Okay, so is this our land bank?
No, it would not. be
Okay,
our-
it is a land bank located in Will County, run by CD?
The board.
Well, yes, true, created, I don't know.
It would be created, it would be created by the county. So the county, I think the county would pass this. This would be the basis for how the land bank would operate. It would be the base, it would be the IGA. The municipalities can either join the land bank or not join the land bank. That's the process that we as municipalities are under the impression that if assuming you approve this, that creates the land bank. If communities choose to join, this is the basis of which they're joining, not a protracted negotiation about what is or isn't in the IGA. Where there will be protracted discussions is outside of the county at the actual land bank about what their policies and procedures will be, what their purchasing process will be, what their reviews will be, et cetera. Those will be determined by the land bank board of directors using this document as this is the founding document for the land bank. Should the municipals choose to join, they're joining with this understanding that it's a basically take it or leave it structure, and then they can work out the details if they become members as to bylaws, policies, et cetera. But they're stuck with this as the foundation for it either way.
So, I'm sorry, I just really need to. So stuck with this copy, I'm going to call it the red line for now, because this is the one this is the one that was printed.
Correct.
Right, okay. So the one that had the red line in it is, you are asking us to vote whether we want a land bank or not governed this way.
Correct.
Until changes could happen depending on municipalities that join. No, the
No.
municipalities have to go along with everything that's in this period.
Correct. That's why my suggestions are to keep it vague. The
Okay.
policies, procedures, purchase rules, all the stuff that where you really would get into a negotiation about who's buying what, when, where, et cetera. That all will happen at the land bank amongst its members. This group is just setting up the basic rules for how the land bank will establish itself and the overall rules for how it operates. The details come from from the land bank itself. What's being asked is, do you think a land bank should be created using these rules? If you say yes, the land bank is created, the county's role in it is done. The funds will be from the CED. The land bank doesn't envision coming back to the county. I would never say never, because I don't know what crazy situation might come up a decade from now, but you know, for the foreseeable future, they will never come back to this body to talk about about the land bank, other than maybe if the county asks for a report about it or something like that. But it will become its own entity. It will worry about all those problems. It basically moves away from the county and becomes its own thing. So you're just setting up the rules under which it can operate. The details, policies, that's for the board.
So based on the green line that we saw today, is yours, yes, I understand that, I gotta go red, green. Is your copy going to change at all before Thursday? Because we're being asked to vote on this on Thursday, is this accurate?
That
Or it could be postponed,
I
but
am
whatever.
not sure about that. I don't
Okay.
know if this board is ready.
But it's on the agenda.
It is.
Okay, so would your copy be changing at all before Thursday, based on what you saw today?
My understanding is that it's ultimately your all's copy to do whatever you want with and set the rules. You can make it say whatever you want. The only concerns I have are the ones I expressed about Member Ortiz's couple of comments, and then the change about the real estate that we should have two. And I think that the 1.5 mile thing is probably worth some discussion to just protect the county from getting into arguments with the municipalities and vice versa. So other than those couple changes, whatever else you want to do is your own decisions to make.
Okay, so then I'm going to go back to us as a procedural situation. So now this was, green copy was handed out as suggestion. And I'm not saying anything mean to you. You're not taking the green to change it to this. This would be something that we as a group would decide if we're going to add some of this to what is being proposed from CED.
So again, I just following along what Member Bullock is saying here, because I've got the same questions. What we have right now is a red line version of a document that was amended and it is presented today, that was amended at the last executive committee meeting. And that's what's advanced to the county board, right? But now there are suggested amendments that are not formal. Again, we're in a discussion situation, but there's suggested amendments from Member Ortiz. There are questions that are coming from Leader Richmond. There are additional questions that are coming from Member Logan and possibly other members as well that would have to be incorporated. But we can't just go make those amendments or make changes based upon this conversation here and then present those as amended on the next county board agenda. Am I correct on that?
Correct. Generally, we would have direction from the overall board. So the safest way to handle that would be amendments on the floor, on the county board day to change whatever paragraph 10 to read such a way. Staff generally, doesn't just make decisions as
Right.
to what should be and shouldn't be in there.
Correct. So everything is a suggestion right now at this meeting, a suggestion or a question, but all we have right now that we can vote on is a redlined, a very minimally redlined version from the last executive committee meeting. And every other thing that would change on that would have to be amended on the floor of the county board meeting then, correct?
That would be the safest way of doing it and the way we've done it in the past.
And it's safe to say that based upon all of the questions that are out there and based upon the extensive number of suggested amendments that potentially are out there, this would be a long process with regard to this.
I would think so.
That's all I.
And I do just want to clarify a point there. So there was a point of, well, it could be a take it or leave it scenario. Sure, that is true, that everyone could sign on to our preferred version, but if they don't, then there's no IGA. And we are not home rule, so we can't just create a land bank on our own. And there's also provisions within the statute that, or in the agreement that talk about this being amended by the board at a later time, the IGA. And I know board members have raised concerns about the board of the land bank amending the IGA. So it's not set in stone, I think is that set in stone.
So would the procedure for Thursday be the introduction or not discussion, because we'd have to make some voting happen. The amendments would be the presentation of the amendments, which we all have access to. They were emailed to us. And given that questions are still out, I'm not asking to make a decision, I'm just, then we could do amendments on Thursday, but possibly postpone voting on the land bank and the IGA until August. Unless we get all of this hammered out in the meeting and everybody's happy and you know what I mean? Like, and all the questions have gotten back to the people who had the question, this is Tuesday. We're talking 2 days from now, everybody's got everything answered and back and good to go.
Yes, you could amend it and postpone with those amendments. You could push it forward and then see what happens with the other municipalities.
I'm not saying I want to I am not a
No,
proponent of postponement,
you
but
can always postpone something.
yeah.
Now, whether that matches the timelines that we need to do, again, that's a operational concern, but it is a legally available option to you.
Okay, and I don't know if I got an answer that I remember or understood. What is our reach as a board with this land bank?
In terms of territorial limits or how much you control it?
There you go.
Control it?
Yeah.
Well, again, that depends on some of the suggestions we've had. We've had suggestions to have 2 board members on there. And again, the gentleman's correct. Once this gets going, the board has now created this governmental entity to run the day-to-day. So we could ask for reports, we could do those sort of things, but the day-to-day would be run by the board of the land bank.
I understand that. Should we agree to some of the changes in who's on the board? Is this board, let me ask it this way. Is this board as a whole body done with the land bank once we say, yes, do it, good to go?
Correct. Yes.
Yes, assuming everybody else signs up on it, then you're done.
I guess here, let me just jump in. Here's the idea. I understand we're in a time crunch for whatever reason. We've had multiple discussions on the land bank as a body, as a whole. We had a separate committee of the whole, which is today, that we've had fair amount of participation, not complete. It's up to this board whether we want to move forward with the land bank or not. If we don't, that's fine. Maybe we can help and say, on Thursday that, yes, we are interested in having one. Let's establish one, and then we can hammer out the IGA or make the amendments on the floor. But, come August, I'm afraid that this money is going to have to be focused somewhere else. And maybe you or Kayla might have a better idea about that, but do you guys think it's a good idea to have a land bank or not? I think we're trying to micromanage this when we do have a list of board members that will be on the land bank, and for the most part, 95% of these properties, I would assume, would be the municipalities, and who better would you want to be on this board than the mayors or representation from the municipalities that are dealing with these blighted properties. So it's kind of like we talk about overreach from Springfield. I kind of feel like this board is maybe making an attempt to do the same, but I don't know. Can you make a comment on the spending of the money and what kind of time crunch that we would be in.
I
Would you be happy with August to give the board members more time, or is this something that you say, hey, yes, we need a land bank, or we want one as a board?
Yeah, I would have to defer to the CED in the county, frankly, on what the deadlines for getting that money out the door is. I think sooner is probably better because assuming let's say you passed it Thursday, it's still going to take time to get it enacted, have a board meeting, get the money transferred, because then it has to, it'll become a legal entity. Like there's some time that goes into that. It's not like you create a land bank, that $1 million is suddenly off the ARPA books and spent. It's going to take some time to do all that. So the sooner that we can get this done, the better, because every day that there's delay pushes us real close. We're already very close to that deadline, is my understanding of it. The Governmental League didn't get ARPA money, so I don't have experience handling the ARPA money and what days it's all due. I know that there's a deadline coming. I know that time is important, and I also know that it's July and August, and getting people together and have longer discussions and everything is going to be a challenge too. So the sooner it gets passed, the better. To your point about, is it micromanaging? To some extent, you have to trust that the local officials that are elected by these communities and you as elected officials are doing things in the best interest of their communities, and that you've set up enough guardrails to feel like you're protected as a county, that you did the right thing, that you spent taxpayer dollars wisely. But then you have to hand it off. And once it's handed off, then it becomes someone else's problem to deal with.
Kayla, would you like to
Yeah,
comment?
I would definitely share your sentiments about the timeline of things. When this funding was appropriated to us, we had a list of things that we wanted to use this funding for, and Land Bank has definitely been one of them. So we still feel that this is an appropriate, a use of this. This is a project that we want to continue to see come to fruition. I understand, timing is of the essence. So we would absolutely want to see this approved as soon as possible so that we can continue on with ensuring that this money gets out the door and used for the purposes that we see. You all entrusted the CED with this, and that's why we've come before this body with this proposal, because we feel it is a great initiative that some of our communities would be absolutely utilizing. So yes, timing of the essence, but we definitely still feel this is an initiative that we want to proceed with. And we would have to go back to the drawing board. We have a list of things that we could utilize this money for. I'd have to take a look at what all those things are, but there has been a lot of time and energy and research and things put into this that, Doug does not bring things before this body if it's not of, good use and, goodwill to the communities that we serve. So, and again, you trusted us with this fund, so we would love to see this continue to move forward.
Okay. Last comments. I'm going to go to Mr. Richmond first, Leader Richmond, and then we'll make our closing comments. I got you.
All right, thank you, Joe. So, Hugh, as Mr. Pepsi, you've carried 99% of the soda for the CED, and you've done a good job. I appreciate that. Thank you for coming out. You're in a tough position. I've been in positions like that myself, and you try and do the best you possibly can. I believe you've done that. You've shown that to this group.
Thank you.
Couple things. Government programs never die. They just seem to expand and grow and seem to require more funding, things like that. With that in the back of my mind, the CED is going to be nothing more than the upper management team, and we get to be bystanders that get to look at the progress of a land bank, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you're the member who's.
Absolutely.
The CED establishes, initially sets up the board of directors, and then it's passed off, and it is a totally separate entity that is not under the CED
Okay,
control.
but the county board has really very little to do with it.
Correct.
Very little to do with it. I guess my question is if this has been something that the CED has been thinking about for a while, why didn't we see this last September or last November or in January or something like that? I just feel that when things are pushed through on a very tight timeline, there's things fall through the cracks, things don't get implemented properly, and I don't like to pass it and then read it after the fact. That is very troubling. We did submit a bunch of questions, and you did say, Hugh, that you'd be happy to go through these.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of people that want to, they've got other plans and things like that, and I can appreciate that. I mean, I'm prepared to sit here till 5:30 if that's the case. If you and I just want to sit here and go through, answer all these questions. I do have a number of things that I think I would least like to read. You don't have to respond to them, but these are questions that I think need to be addressed before we actually move forward. So to your point, Joe, I don't think we're ready for this as a number of people on the board. I know there's some people that may say, you know what, let's move forward with it. I'm not against this. I do need to understand every aspect of it, or at least enough so that I can feel confident in the decision that I'm going to make.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to blow through these real fast because I can read it like 100 words a minute. And I'm not trying to gloss over this, but I think these are some of the things that have been not only on my mind, but on other people's minds. Because what I tried to do, Joe, is aggregate these things so that this wouldn't be a very long meeting. It has turned into be a 3-hour meeting, but it's $1 million. It's important, and it's new territory for this board.
Can't disagree.
So thank you. And I'm going to try and follow along with the questions that you had, because I tried to build your sheet off of what we had here. So and you don't have to answer. From the financial impact, what's the estimated startup costs? What's the projected annual budget? What's the anticipated funding sources? And I know some of these things we did touch on a little bit, but who'll be paying staff, legal services, insurance, audits, and administrative expenses? What's the contingency plan if the grant funding or outside funding is reduced and or eliminated? Can the county be asked to provide further funding in the future? You kind of alluded to that it's possible. Does that become another line on the tax on our tax bill for this? Will we ever have to use property tax dollars, coming off of our property tax bill or our general fund to go to the land bank? Will there ever be a new taxing body? What financial liabilities are we exposed to in this case as taxpayers? Now, from what I'm hearing, based on what you've told me, Kaylee, right? Kayla, I apologize, is that we have nothing to do with this after the fact. So who bears the burden of any kind of liabilities that come from this lawsuit, so that you don't have to answer the question? I understand, because we're trying to be cognizant of time. Can anybody in occupied properties ever be acquired? Well, they said provide the current list of project properties. I know you don't have that as of yet. How will properties be sold or transferred? Will they just be going out in the open market, MLS type system, things like that? Can properties be sold below market? Hugh, you did allude to the fact that there could be losses. In business, there's sometimes that you lose a little bit of money. Most of the time, hopefully you could break even, make a little bit of margin. And then there's other times you hope to hit some grand slams. And at the end of the day, when you do your annual report, you feel like, all right, I've made the proper margin that I need to make so that I can survive another year in business. What standards will be used to select developers and or purchasers? How will redevelopment agreements be enforced? I assume that'll all be through the land bank and your appropriate advisors that are sitting on there, bankers, lawyers, things like that. Now, this one I think I know the answer to, but municipalities can veto the proposed process. And this leads me to one of my prior questions is, Hugh, I believe that you received some language from municipalities couple weeks ago, or that's what I was told by a mayor or two.
Yeah, we've had I'm thinking of which mayor you talked to, but
Yes.
yeah, we had multiple discussions around that particular issue.
And is that language acceptable to Doug and the land bank and all the parties involved?
Yes, that's why I also mentioned the 1.5 mile thing was.
That's what I figured, yeah.
What came out of those discussions, and that if you allow the municipalities to have that veto authority, if it's within 1.5 miles, I think that puts a lot of the concerns that were out there, particularly a couple weeks ago, that, like I said, that folks thought that this was, Will County's version of build.
Yep.
Which,
And I'm
Not-
glad to hear that you're willing to accept that because that mayor was,
oh yeah,
was, doesn't have an issue with it, but is very needs that language in there to protect their local municipalities' interest. And I'm sure that speaks for a lot of other
it does,
municipalities.
because the number of mayors that called that are like, I know you said land banks are good. I'm hearing some things. We talked about it. They understood that they had the veto authority, and then that, we would be asking about the 1.5 miles. They all felt, the ones that I spoke to felt comfortable. I won't tell you that I talked to every mayor. I did not. But like I said, it's also not going to impact every community. So there's some, I'm
No.
not particularly worried about Frankfurt right now.
No, okay, all right, all right. As a unit of development, the land bank will have to be concerned about contamination, and I believe that somebody over on the other side of the aisle, and I can't remember who it was, talked about abatement and contaminated asbestos, things like that. Those are all things that we could run into, and again, we don't want to assume any liability as the county, because they always go after the person with the deepest pockets in any kind of lawsuit. And last thing I want to do is have the county have exposure to that. Insurance and all that, you're going to have to obviously take on some kind of insurance for these properties, and that'll be a responsibility and expense that the land bank will have to pay for.
Yep.
Again, maximum potential financial exposure to the county. You're telling me that basically, seeing as it's not us that's representing it, we have absolutely no exposure on that front. We talked a little bit about tax projections, but once some of these properties that you may take off of the tax, that you may acquire, will be taken off the tax rolls. And that burden of whatever that property owner was paying is going to be off the tax rolls for some period of time. So that will be spread across through the assessor's office, every other taxpayer. So the property owners to the north, south, east, and west of that property will have to bear some burden on their tax bill of that property, as long as it's not on the tax rolls.
Everyone in that taxing district. Yeah.
We'll have to, well, yeah, that's why I said north, south, east, and west, everybody.
Yep. Everybody.
You talked about reports and that presented to the public in that quarterly. I believe that was a recommendation, and you did mention the fact that you will have to have more frequent meetings, which would be interesting to hear more about it. Have we measured the outcomes? I know the gentleman from University Park was here, and the mayor, I believe it was.
Yeah.
He had great praises on what they've done in that, and I'm glad to see it. Actually, I drove through that area probably about a month or two ago, and I was surprised to see the development that's going on. It's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're doing a great job over there. So I believe that local governments are the ones that are best to manage just about every aspect of their citizenry. And the higher up you go in government, the less they really know and understand what's going on at that local level. So kudos to him for the job that he's doing out there. Again, this goes back to additional land bank funding and all that kind of stuff. And how are you going to disclose the financials of the land bank? I mean, are there going to be quarterly reports that show profit and loss and, that type of stuff? I mean, is this going to be something that is going to be FOIA'd? Are you going to fall under the Open Meetings Act, things like that? Because those are all things about something like this when we're talking about money, and especially redevelopment dollars could become very big dollars in the future. We need to have full transparency and shed the light of day on every single dollar that's being moved around and when it's being moved around. And lastly, just the, lessons learned. I mean, is there any type of consortium where all the other land banks get together and bounce ideas off of each other and try and come up with new ways to make life better in these communities?
Yeah, there is. So just on the last part there, yes, there is a group out there, the Center for Community Progress, I think, that does. It's all for land banks, and it's all about land banks. It's sort of their like national association, more or less, that do work on these ideas and do look for best practices across the country. So there is that resource available, and So there are ways to go about that. The land bank would have to follow open meetings and FOIA, so any of that information would be available. As far as the financial stuff, it would have to have an audit every year, so you would definitely see everything there. I looked more at the Central Illinois one because that was, when I spoke to people that are in this space, they kind of highlighted that as one of the better ones. You can see right on their website a picture of the before, after, et cetera, for every property they've taken on. In their case, like I said, it was a lot of demos versus rehabs, but they put all that information on their website, and I think that is a best practice that anyone in this space should do. So that information would be out there. I can't tell you the quarterly reports are the best way, or every 6 months, or your annual audits. I'll be honest, I just don't know at this point. And it really depends on how much activity the land bank has as to how often that you use.
I appreciate your honesty in that. And Joe, I think what it is there's still a lot of open questions in that, because Hugh, you were not able to go through our whole list of questions that we gave to you, or that I know you did touch upon some of them in that. And what I can do is I can kind of juggle the list of the things that I just kind of rattled off and put them into that document.
Yeah, there were a few in here. What is the expected annual cost? I mean, I think well, some of that is TBD, which I know is not a great answer, but some of that is to be determined. Annual operating budget, again, we'll have to figure that out. The long-term funding, yes, grants, revolving loan fund, that's basically what the $1 million becomes, and then funds from the sold properties, as well as, if someone wanted to donate to it, they could take a donation, but I don't know who would do that. But grants, using the $1 million as a fund is largely what the focus of the funding will be. The administrator, that type of stuff, as far as how many employees, again, that'll be for the board of the land bank to determine how many they actually need. As far as whether or not they're full-time employees, or you just hire somebody on a part-time consulting basis, my guess is it would be part-time consulting basis, especially in the beginning. The properties that we're targeting would be those blighted ones. The timeline to purchase them, I think, as I said at the beginning, we want to crawl before anything else here. So we would probably start with a small number. Property disposition, when it comes to the residential property, you would probably just put them on the market with a realtor. You wouldn't try to go picking and choosing who owns those. Commercial properties, depending on what type of property, the communities may have something in mind that they want us to RFP for a specific property. There were questions about how the municipalities will be notified. Once it happens, we'll just literally call and talk to every municipality. Some of them, obviously are partially in other counties and might be in another one. So let's see who wants to be a part of this. Is there a negative to not being a part of it? No, you're just not a part of it. What safeguards? I think we talked about that, and as well as the 1.5 miles, if that got added, I think that provides sort of the ultimate protection for the municipalities. Who's at risk? The land bank ultimately is the ones who would be responsible for those dollars past once they go out.
Yeah, and one quick question. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Hugh. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you provide that language to our state's attorney's office to have it incorporated into the documentation?
I have not. I know I spoke with the speaker about it 2 weeks ago, but no, it has not been. It wasn't sent to the state's attorney's office. No.
Can you
I can
forward
do that,
to
yeah.
the appropriate body so that this way it's documented? Because, I wanted to stay out of it. And I think because they're the ones that have the concerns and the questions, and they should speak right directly to the folks that are making that, creating this land bank or that. So I think if you could forward that over to them, if you guys are good with that, then make them aware of it. So thank you. I didn't mean to derail you either. So
No, that's where were we? Risk management. The land bank would be who's at risk, who could be sued. would be the land bank. The metrics, we talked about those. And then the last one I saw in there was the impact of existing laws. Yeah, the Build Act, I mean, we're going to continue fighting that as municipalities, and hopefully we can kill it again. But yeah, if those things change, it will have an impact, but it wouldn't be directly on the land bank as far as like build. As I said before, the land bank would have to follow whatever zoning and rules are in place for each community. And so the communities would have to, if the Build Act passed, the municipalities would have to amend their zoning codes within a certain period of time. And then terminating the land bank, that's all included in the ordinances, how that would be dismantled and where those funds and how they would be distributed back.
Yeah, I just don't want to see another taxing body on property taxpayers' tax bills.
Yeah, I don't see a way where this becomes a taxing body because it has no authority to tax.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no authority to tax. That's why the concerns about debt, it doesn't have a revenue source to borrow against. So I don't think it would be issuing debt because of that. It doesn't have a guaranteed way to pay it back. So that would be a challenge. And again, no taxing authority. So it can only run off the money that the million that the CED would put in, and then any funds that the sales generate, and then of course grants and whatnot.
That was probably one of your top 10 statements you just made. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Richmond. When you're sitting up here, you always tend to find yourself trying to pivot. Listening to the concerns of the board members, I'd like Mr. Myers to make a statement, and let's see if we can kind of agree.
So another potential way of getting to where we're looking to get here based on all the comments, and I'll give credit to all the group here that's been discussing this, is we could move this as posted on the agenda forward with establishing the Will County Land Bank, the first portion of it, just saying we're interested in doing this. We would make it, we're allocating funds to doing this, and we would make it contingent upon the creation of an entity through an IGA. That would at least get us through Thursday. I think that might give the folks over there a little more firm direction on how to get the money going forward. And then we'd have, either a special meeting and in August, the details of the IGA, but it would at least put the county direction the county's going, and give them an idea. That's a potential. Again, it doesn't hammer out all these things that we're talking about, but it at least steers the ship a certain direction. If it comes up and we say we're just not interested, then they know that they need to pivot quickly. So that's another option. Is the way it's presented is it's really a two-piece thing. I won't say establishing the land use bank because we don't have anyone else to establish it with, but putting it forward, the county desires to go forward with this, and then we'll craft a IGA that will be able to use the legal authority to create this entity.
I think that's the direction I'd like to go as well, just for the sake of funding. All right. I know Ms. Leader Williams has not had a chance to speak. And then I would ask anybody else, maybe if you absolutely have to have a question answered, go ahead. But we probably a good time to start wrapping this up. Leader Williams?
Yes, thank you. I think this is a good idea that the state's attorney just put forward. The sticking point seems to be the IGA. So I think we all want to do a land bank. It's just that if we get the IGA the way that we want it to be, and that is not, I agree it should be kind of broad because we're going to have a whole bunch of people in there. But if we can get the things in there that we need in there, that should satisfy just about everybody. So I think that that's a good thing. And being that we have our caucus meetings coming up, maybe we can discuss some of these amendments to the IGA at that point too. So thank you.
Thank you. Member Balich?
What the state's attorney said is one of the things I was going to say. And then for me, I need to see in the IGA, just so everybody knows, I'll vote no unless it says the county is never, ever responsible for any liability at all, and that we are never, ever use tax dollars to support this. That's all I care about. The rest of it will all come good. And I used to do something, I didn't call it that, but I used to be in real estate. I was a broker. And I understand what this is, and they will be able to fund this by themselves and make a lot of money. They do it the right way, and I don't see why they wouldn't.
All right, your comment is noted. Let's go to Member Newquist.
Actually, that was going to be one of my questions. Is there an indemnification clause in there for the county, and do we need one? That was one question, and you don't have to answer that right now if you don't want to, Kevin. But then my only other comment was that we've had a lot of suggestions for the IGA. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't, but some of them more properly belong in the the operating agreement or the board rules. And so maybe we need to take all these suggestions, and if someone could let us know, this is potential for the IGA, this is really, comes under the board rules, that might speed us up in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Berkowitz.
Thank you. I'm a little, I'm not sure, how do you have an organization like this that has to have staff, but there's no revenue source? That's too unknown to me. We're starting this with $1 million of ARPA funds, which were taxpayer dollars. And then you move forward, you do have staff, you have to have facilities, you have to have tangible items, but yet you don't have a set revenue source. It's all geared by that initial investment of $1 million ARPA funds. I'm not comfortable with this. I do know that my constituents, they want tax refunds. They don't want their tax money distributed out to other entities that are for profit, because this has to create a profit or you can't exist. So there's just too many unknowns about that. And yeah, I don't agree that every board member is voting for this. So I think it's premature to force a board member to vote for the creation of a land bank without any clear process or clear organizational structure. That's premature. I cannot, we need to have the ability to talk to the state's attorney and to get all of this ironed out. I think that, whenever there's a potential liability, lawyers will often tell you people will sue anybody, whether or not it makes any sense, and that person who's being sued has to react. And I think we have to be concerned about that. I was wondering what would motivate a homeowner to gift, donate, or sell a property to the land bank versus just selling it?
So generally, if you were to gift it, let's say, it's likely that it's for tax purposes, that they're just looking to unload a property that they've
So
owned.
there's tax benefits.
So they would be making a donation to the land bank in that amount. So there's probably they're going to have a tax implication on that. That's why someone would do it. As far as why you would sell to the land bank versus sell to anyone else, in general, the properties we're talking about are so run down or dilapidated that there's just not that interest from a developer to buy it and flip it. And the reason that a land bank works in that scenario versus a private developer is that when you take, yes, the land bank let's say the land bank could make 5% on a dilapidated house, just for simple math examples, right? But a developer, by the time they put all their costs in, they want to make 20% on the sale, and they're never going to make 20% on the sale of these particular properties. The land bank can be there to be able to then get it fixed up and turn around and sell it. And if they only make 5% on it, so be it. They still came out a little bit ahead of where they were. So it takes that gap where there's that lack of incentive for a private developer to take it, and makes it a little easier to fix up and offload.
So there's tax incentives for someone to do this. Again, that does raises some concerns on my part. Will this or could this land bank hold property that sits in other counties?
Yes. Yeah, it could.
So we're
But
using
it's,
Will County ARPA dollars.
again, it could, and could and will are very different. It would be, again, up to the board to decide where to spend those dollars. Could it? Yes. Will it? I don't want to say that it couldn't happen. There's, we have a lot of communities that are in multiple counties, that if they joined ours, that they might want, us to purchase. So, and vice versa, other land banks can hold property, my understanding, in Will County today. So it's, it's possible. I would say it's not particularly likely, but is it possible? Yes.
So how does the homeowner, though, who's in the community around a particular parcel that goes into a land bank, what assurances do they have that that redevelopment is not going to negatively impact them? We have redevelopment all over in Naperville, and it's forcing people out of their properties because it's impacting the assessed values of their property.
Yeah,
Their properties are going.
it's increasing their property value, Julie.
Yes, and then they can't afford to pay their property taxes. So again, we have to look at the big picture. We have to look at how there are some communities that are changing, but it isn't the change that the people who have been there for 30, 40, 50 years want. So I'm just being proactive here to look at all of the dynamics here and what could occur. This is really important.
Okay.
I would say, redevelopment in Naperville is very different than redevelopment in almost all the rest of the county. Naperville's redevelopment, it is, but the land bank couldn't afford property in Naperville, even with $1 million. It's not like Naperville is not the target audience for a land bank. Joliet's a target for the land bank. University Park's a target for the land bank. I understand that, but blighted and not wealthy are different. And I don't know that there's a lot of Naperville that's blighted. Not to say that there aren't one or two properties that maybe qualify as blighted, but I do not envision Naperville being a heavy activity zone for the land bank.
Well, okay, this isn't about Naperville, and
Oh, no,
there are
that's just your
people in Naperville that are, not wealthy and not, there's a lot of people who have been there their whole lives, and they're living very modest homes. And again, I'm going back to how the unknowns with this. If the land bank acquires a vacant property, that doesn't mean that property is dilapidated.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And no municipality is forced into this. So if the residents of Naperville don't want their property being bought by the land bank, It's up to the council.
But again, the residents of Naperville, their voice is their city council or
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
And look around, there's a lot of controversy going around. There are a lot of communities that are fighting things, data centers, all kinds of things in their municipalities.
We have an election process for that. We're
Okay.
getting way off topic. All right. We've been here quite a while. The state's attorney gave us some advice. Maybe we can decide whether we want to pass a land bank or not on Thursday with the contingency of a new IGA that we took some in consideration from today's discussion. So I'm moving on. There is no other new, old business. I am not going to present any new business. There is no announcements and reports by chair. No need for executive session. So the last item is a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.